There's something about the Eifel region when night begins to fall and the racing cars can be heard from miles around. We're about to enter second qualifying here at the 50th running of the Nürburgring 24 hours. And this is, for most of the entries, the only chance to experience matters after darkness has fallen before they're feeling it for real in the racing on Saturday night. Thank you for joining our coverage of the second of three standard qualifying sessions then across 2 days. My name's Johnny Palmer, and I'm delighted to say that throughout the course of the next 3 hours, we're actually going to be cycling through pretty much our whole broadcast team. It's like a 3-hour race, and Peter Snowden and me are doing the first stint. Welcome on board, Peter, because this will be the first input that you will have had on site. I mean, the amount of NLS races you've covered and also the previous 24, but here to experience it for real. And you've also raced here in the past, but we're going to delve into that later on in this first 60 minutes.
Thank you, Johnny. Remember, it's a 24-hour show, so we've got plenty of time to come back to that. But
we have.
There's a phrase, isn't there, that night time's the right time, and nowhere better to experience it than the Nürburgring. What a fantastic opportunity. The sun is just starting to set. It's nice and cool. Cars are going to be at their optimum. Tyres are going to be right. Air's going to be right for the engines. It's just perfect, and it's perfect for us. And great to be back on site. So the last 2 years remotely, we're doing it together. But great to have AB back on site and the RSL team back here. Just loving it.
And all this preparation key for so many of the classes, 22 of them in total, stretching from V2T, whether that be front or rear-wheel drive, to the alternatively fueled cars. And there are also going to be an awful lot of GT3 machines, 15 of them not allowed to take part in the first 20 minutes of this qualifying two. They are the cars that are already through to top Q2 tomorrow night, because top qualifying, which has previously run as a top 30 session where the top 30 qualifying cars were eligible for that, where we've already got 15 cars in from the 2 NLS races that have already happened. You were part of those earlier on in the season, and the 2 races we had during the qualifying weekend as well, which are held separate from the NLS season. So 15 cars already in, and for them it's a question of using this session to try and fine-tune the car as much as possible, but you desperately do not want the car stranded out in the country, or worse, in a barrier somewhere.
Exactly so, and it's you say those 2 3-hour qualifiers we had a couple of weekends ago that John and I covered, and it was normally it's a 6-hour race. For this year's 50th anniversary of the 24-hour, they split it into 2 3-hour races, one each day. A little bit different, but it's initially, on initial look at this, it's a bit sort of complicated. Is it a qualifying session? What's top qualifying? Why is there a bit tomorrow? And the way I look at it is in my simplistic driver point of view, and you'll probably correct me, Johnny, because I am only a simple driver in the past. I look at it as the top cars have got a free practice session within the other group's qualifying time.
Yes.
It's all on a track time. I hope that's an easier way of explaining it.
I think it is, but whereas you can afford a misstep in SP9 or in SPX, the guys competing in SP8T, for example, for the turbocharged GT machines, SP3T for the front-wheel drive in the main TCR cars that aren't eligible for TCR category itself. We've got GT4 competing in this session as well. So there are so many cars that want the track space and want to try and push for a time, because as you've said, conditions without it raining, and although there's a bit of threatening cloud here and there, dry for the start of this session, this could be the time that you get pole. And if you're in the classes that aren't SP9 or SPX, it will absolutely count as to where you start the race at 4 o'clock on Saturday.
Well, it increases the pressure, doesn't it, in some ways, because there's always that phrase of, you bank a lapse, but we've got all this qualifying session to go, 24-hour race. There's also an alternative view, and I can imagine some of the drivers down the pit lane and team managers are going to be saying to me now, what are you talking about? But it's a 24-hour race. Is qualifying that important?
Yes, I would say so, because you have to be, remember it's 3 different groups as well, so you want to be at the front of your group, because I have seen so many tangles down at the Yokohama S, as it's called, not using the Mercedes arena that is used in the NLS races. It's so tricky to get through there cleanly, the sharp right, the sharp left, and then down for the rest of the Grand Prix circuit.
I threw it out there deliberately, Johnny, just to see, but where did the second place car finish last year, start last year on the grid?
Nobody remembers that.
19th.
Okay. Right, well, there we are then.
Just saying.
Precisely. And so much can...
But I can imagine every team manager in the pit lane hanging their heads going like, what is he saying? What's qualifying? Why are we doing this? Like, okay, where's certification and costs, etc., etc. Of course it's important.
From a percentage point of view, I wouldn't want to be starting in the midfield of any of the classes, because if you get spun round, you can then get hit, as we've already seen in the free practice session, rather the qualifying session earlier on. So you've got me at it now, calling it a free practice session. It is for the GT3 cars. But yeah, we've had damaged cars. We've even had a Falcon Motorsport BMW collide with an intervention vehicle, for goodness sake. And that can very easily happen in the race on Saturday.
I did get the backstory on that one, and
go on.
It was quite interesting.
No pun intended.
No,
because it was the back of the. Was it the 102?
Do you know? I'd like to think I was that good, but I'm not. But they did say that it was being pulled back out of the way, and the guy in the intervention field just put his foot on the brake and said, "What's going to happen? The rope's going to shorten." And he ran into it.
Yeah.
As they said, there's always a little bit more damage than should be, but it's fairly light. I think it was a bit beyond polishing out, but it's not a whole bumper PU replacement and whatever. So that'll be out again. Nothing dramatically done to that car.
And from Jörg Müller's perspective, who was on board the racing car at the time, we were talking before on air how limited visibility from the front of these GT3 cars can be. You have next to no visibility, immediate visibility behind, and you are just trusting that the recovery will be carried out safely. And what he needed to do was leap on the brakes, but he needed some instruction to do that. Anyway, it is all in the past, and lessons will have been learned, I'm sure.
It's behind them, you mean?
Indeed. We'll leave it there.
We should have had Nick Damon for that, shouldn't we, really? So that's his gig.
If you weren't around earlier on for qualifying one, SP9 cars setting the pace, as you would expect, and a good smattering of non-qualified cars for top qualifying Q2 tomorrow night. We're up there, including the 98 Rover Racing BMW M4 GT3. It was a Nicky Katzberg time, despite John Edwards and Marco Wittmann going out ahead of the Dutchman. But Katzberg put in the effort in the end, and it was an 8:14.771 to put that car fastest from Christian Krognes's time for Falcon Motorsport, also a BMW M4 GT3. These are brand new cars to replace the outgoing M6 for these teams. And Car 101, which is one of those cars already qualified for the second part of top qualifying tomorrow night. But that clearly has decent speed even in qualifying one. Then a Mercedes, the only Bilstein entered machine for Raffaele Marciello, Philip Ellis and Lucas Stoltz. That car was third, ahead of the TalkSport WRT Porsche. No longer are that team running a Mercedes. They run lots of Skodas in the World Rally Championship as well, by the way. And I think this might be TalkSport's first ever Nürburgring 24 hours. Certainly in a Porsche anyway, because they've switched manufacturers. And what a lineup they've got, by the way. Julian Andlauer, Matt Campbell, Mathieu Jaminet. That car was fourth by the flag, and the flag came out about 10 minutes early in that earlier session because of damage to one of the barriers on the Grand Prix lap. Snowy.
Yeah, and that TalkSport car is brand spanking new this weekend. It never turned a wheel until the session today. They'd literally done no testing, no setup. It's a brand spanking new car. So talk about going into it blind, effectively.
Yes.
And that's before it goes dark.
Yes, and I would assume a lot of the TalkSport mechanics, the TalkSport WRT mechanics, have been retained from the previous programme, so they've had to get their minds around a very different orientation of car, from the front-engined 6.2 litre V8 to the 4 litre flat 6 that hangs off the rear of a Porsche. Already a car off, and that is the 830 on the Grand Prix circuit, which is the Elantra, I believe, from Hyundai. Yes, the 830 Hyundai Motorsport ended machine. Manuel Lauk and Mark Basseng amongst the driving lineup there, as Kona makes it a trio.
Yeah, it's gone onto the grass and just swapped ends. You can see time marks on the grass, and it's just, I think...
So it was behind an Aston Martin at the time, mounted the curve. No, it's behind that, beg pardon, I picked out the wrong Hyundai.
Yeah, it's just gone straight.
So coming into the Vidal chicane, and it didn't turn right. And I don't like the look of that front left corner.
It's like the disc has failed, I think, because the front left, as you say, Johnny, good spot there, is locked entirely. So it just looked like it outbraked himself, and it's just gone straight on.
I wonder whether the wheel was properly attached to that car. So Mikkel Azkona, Manuel Lauk and Mark Basseng are the drivers for that particular car. And the yellows are out, at least locally, at the end of the Grand Prix straight. It was Manuel Lauk driving that on an outlap, and a pretty busy one at that, coming through that left-right chicane towards the end of the Grand Prix lap. So sector and a half or so into this 9-sector circuit. Mauro Engel is working hard at the wheel, one of the first cars to venture out onto the full circuit at this time of evening. There's also a slow Team Zorg Rennsport Porsche Cayman S from the V6 category, which is struggling a touch on the Grand Prix lap. Of course, if you're just doing a little shakedown at the start of qualifying 2, you can always get to the end of the Grand Prix lap and turn right, either into the pits or back onto the Grand Prix circuit. You don't have to commit to the full 25 kilometres just yet. We may well see a few cars circulating more locally to us. Our commentary box overlooking the main start-finish line. Start line just out of our view, finish line immediately in front of it. We're on driver's left as you come out of Tiergarten. Trying to make space there. The man filter backed. Now that's the Landgraf car, I reckon, car 55, which is Mercedes. And working its way up the hill. That didn't do too badly in qualifying earlier on. 13th for the driver lineup, which includes Patrick Assenheimer, Luki Treffs, Dominic Baumann, and finally Julian Opotolos, who are the 4 drivers in that car heading back up the hill. I wonder whether 1 or 2 here are going to be on the Grand Prix lap thinking, I don't like the look of the amount of traffic that is ahead of me on the Grand Prix lap. I'm going to just go around again and hope there is a clearer gap. That works for the first few corners of Hatzenbach, but if you're in a GT3 car, you're soon going to catch plenty of other machines. Yeah,
of course, we've got that 8:30 Elantra there with the slow zone right at the end, just before it goes on to the Nordschleife. And that's they're interventively looking to bring that car in. But as you said, Johnny, the front left wheel, near side front, it was solid going across the grass, and the rears weren't, so it wasn't on the brakes. So some kind of hub failure, bearing fail, caliper. As you said, it might even be the wheel's not even tightened on properly, and just gone slightly loose in the under the wheel arch. So that may not be as easy as a straight toe to get that off the grass, but equally, it's at the right part of the circuit where they can nip it over the track and get it onto the inside infield and get that slow zone cleared ASAP.
Yeah, it's a weird one, and very little notice Manuel Lauk had that something was up.
It was outlap, wasn't it? Obviously.
Yeah.
It was, yeah. So
I don't. Oh, yeah. He couldn't have got around unless it was a second Grand Prix lap. Yeah, true. I mean, it's worked its way loose through quite a lot of corners on the Grand Prix track. Bearing in mind we're going all the way down to the Dunlop curve at the bottom of the hill. Meanwhile, absolutely flat chat on some of the real quick stuff now, climbing up the hill basically towards the carousel, was Patrick Pilet there in the Falcon Motorsport 44. And Patrick Pilet, whenever we mention his name, we'll probably have to put a car number next to it, because he's entered in both the 44 and the 33 Falcon Motorsport Porsches. Certainly not the only driver in the entry to have allocated 2 cars to their names. You can't be in more than 2, I should make the point, so you can't stretch to 4, 5, 6 different cars.
I don't think you'd want to be, actually.
Probably not.
In terms of exhaustion, GT3 cars, I don't think you'd want to be more than 2 cars.
And by the way, if you're going to hop from one car to the other, you have to have 2 hours off in between. So there's quite a lot of coordination required between. What we haven't got is a driver hopping from wanting to a completely different team. It's internecine seat swapping, but nevertheless, it's going to have to be well pre-planned, because the last thing you want to do is pit a car and go, right, where's the replacement driver? Oh, yes, he's already out on the track in the other car, out in the forest somewhere. Oh, contact for Patrick Pilet. He was trying to get through with the KCMG number 18 Porsche there. And we'll check who's on board that. It's Nick Tandy. Now, Tandy couldn't get by, and subsequently Patrick Pilet slammed into the back of Tandy's blue and white KCMG Porsche. That will no doubt done damage to the front right, because that fender is working its way loose on Pilet's car, and I worry for Nick Tandy's rear left, which will have got a big old thud because of that too.
Yeah, some of that's missing already, Johnny. That disappeared off on the track. on the KCMG car. That's disappeared, but there's the front right wing is loose on the. Can now come off the KCMG car completely. That's resolved that problem, but they do no aero. Well, part of it has now. There's no. On this generation Porsches, there's no radiators right in the corners anymore. Mercifully, it's in the centre, so that's been on the right-hand side, so it shouldn't affect the radiator, which is always your worry of tapping a Porsche into the back of anything else, to be honest, which you shouldn't be doing anyway. It is a non-contact sport. But I would imagine that Patrick Pilet is going to have to start to ease out of the throttle. Indeed, looks like he is to bring that car in. That's going to need some serious repairs in the pits. Yeah, it's slowing down quite dramatically.
As one of the Supras nips by his left, the next problem for Patrick is the headlight's going to pop out, and bodywork progressively closer to him will detach itself from the car.
Has it done any damage to the tyre?
Oh.
To be fair,
thought
yes,
there was a gap there.
Yes,
actually.
well, there was,
and
it disappeared because the KCMG.
I think he read it that Nick was going to go to the right of the slower car.
He did. Unfortunately, he braked and took to the left. Sorry, John, I didn't mean to interrupt, but yeah, it was going around the one of the GT4 Astons, wasn't it? As you said, he did move to the right. Patrick Pilet was going for the gap, which was legitimately there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, KCMG just moved back and then braked, so closed the gap and slowed the gap. Unfortunate. I would say it's a racing incident, but not what you want in the first session of free practice of qualifying at night on the first day Q1.
And not between two Porsches either. Now, they're definitely not the same team.
There's enough in the race, though.
True, that's right. And to be honest, Nick Tandy's car has stood up pretty well to that punishment. But KCMG from Hong Kong, Falcon Motorsport, as the name would suggest, on very different rubber from most of the rest of the field. The Falcon tyre sported on both 33 and 44 Porsches. But Patrick Pilet now needing to be very gingerly down the Dottinger Hohe, probably going at something like a quarter of his normal speed. It was on the approach to Brunchen where the first bit of the wing detached, and actually the headlight has stayed within its socket despite that first bit of bodywork no longer being part of the car.
And the lower night lamp's still there, but it's you say it's that front lower right bit. The splitter is damaged.
Yeah, and I think quite a lot
there's always going to be more, isn't there?
Now, the difficulty during a session like this is you can't get into the pits at the end of the standard lap. He's going to have to do a full lap of the Grand Prix circuit as well. It's all coned off there. Pit lane entry is only open to you if you've done or completing a Grand Prix lap. So he might have thought, oh, I'm home and hosed, but no, not quite. It's going to be another, 3 miles or so before he can head
Hasn't damaged the tyre, Johnny, but we don't want to lose Porsches. We have got a total of 36 Porsches in this race, which is, I think it's got to be a new record, hasn't it? The highest number of Porsches. I think it is, actually.
Okay. Well, I take your word on that.
Well, no, don't take my word on it. I just said I think. I did say I think. I chose my word.
I heard those words.
I've said it's a long race. I'm going to peak early in commentary either. Take my time.
Good point. Good point. KTM are here in force. They haven't got 36 cars in the field, but there's at least 5. Teichmann Racing with, it might even be 4 actually from that particular team. And there are 2 True Racing KTMs of Austria. Mads Seilerhaugen, one of those, the 116. And it is the 116 and the 117 cars that are already in to top qualifying tomorrow night, because these are SPX cars, whereas the Teichmann Racing crossbows are in a category known as Cup X. So Cup X has always been crossbows only, whereas SPX cars are the sort of derived from GT3 machines, but for whatever reason cannot run in legitimate SP9, like the Glickenhaus, like the 2 KTM crossbows that are labelled GT2s, interestingly, on the entry list. So crossbow GT2s, both of these cars will be in at least the first part of top qualifying tomorrow, which is actually a 2-hour and 10-minute session tomorrow night, starting at 10 to 8 local, as the KTM then will need to deal with some slower traffic, comparatively slow traffic. Nobody is really hanging around here at this time of night. Official sunset this evening, by the way, is 27 minutes past 9, so that means Snowy and my stint should be all in daylight, and we shouldn't have too many identification issues. I got the time of that
well, that hasn't jinxed it, has it, at all?
I got the time of the top qualifying slightly wrong, not 10 to 8, 10 to 6, and it runs through till 8 o'clock. So again, that should all be in daylight hours. So 17:50 through till 2000 hours. And now heading off the Dottinger Höhe and into the twisty stuff at the end of the lap. So I just adore the end of the lap here, where you have to be you're sitting behind an SP9 car for so long, and then you finally get a chance in that final sector, which takes about 45 seconds to complete, of getting a run on somebody, but it needs to be done before the kink.
Yeah, what's interesting, though, just talking to some of the guys earlier down in the pits when I did a bit of scouting about, and some of the more experienced drivers, and they were saying that the Falcon 44 car into the pits was, we're just saying about that, but the GT4 cars, because they've got less aero, they're actually quicker on the first part of the Dottinger Höhe than a GT3 car. So they can get a run past them and even get a drive past and get past some of the GT3 cars, because they're less aero reliant. The issue then is you go through the kink and drop down the hill, the GT3 cars tuck in behind the GT4s, but then the GT4s need to lift off and brake a lot sooner in the drop down before the right up to the Tiergarten, where the GT3 cars don't. And that's the last place you want to be starting to find a place to go by and think about, well, do I go this, left, right? Because Tiergarten's, it's complicated enough. And it's, I always describe it, I know that it's a fabled roller coaster here at Nürburgring, but I always describe that little bit of after the kink into Dottinger Höhe, dip, rise up to the Tiergarten as a roller coaster. So you've got two classes of cars, one technically less performance than another, but in a different way. Therefore, it's quicker in a straight line because it's less aero dependent. The other car then has got better aero, so it can keep its foot in longer, down the dip, up the hill, where it uses it, and also the gradient will use it. The car will stick down to the track a bit more, and then they've got to try and find places past it. Left, right, do they go? And that barrier on the left-hand side of the Tiergarten, ever you watch and get the chance to see some of the in-car stuff, and I know that's not a radio comment, but if you do get the chance to see it on various platforms or whatever, just look how close they get to that left-hand barrier. It is quite extraordinary, and that's the beginning of the Tiergarten, Johnny.
Yeah.
Then they do it for the whole day. They don't just do it once. It's like that sort of Robin Williams describing golf, is it? What, you do this once? No, you do it 18 times. What, you do this once? No, we do it for a whole day.
Now, was there a close moment for Vincent Kolb a moment or two ago? Just a bit. He's ended up on the grass on the Hatzenbach and clangs the barrier once, twice, 3 times. The steering's quite possibly gone now. It's certainly out of alignment. Right on the back of a Cayman and could not get round, and it was literally one Michelin tyre on the grass, and that hauled him into the scenery.
Just clipped the Cayman, didn't it? Yeah. It's I'll be amazed if that hasn't done something on the steering arm on the front left again. So drama again in the first real sort of session of the evening, Johnny. But big teams as well.
Massive team, yeah. The Vincent Kolb car is a Phoenix machine, and not yet into the crucial part of top qualifying tomorrow night. The Scherer Sport Team Phoenix R8 LMS GT3, they're all Evo 2s if you're looking at the big teams running Audis this year. And the 5 car will be looking to get one of the top 4 slots that are up for grabs in top qualifying part 2. That runs till 8 o'clock tomorrow night. I should actually give you a list of the cars that are already into that top 15 and therefore are not featuring in this opening 20 minutes of the session, of which we have had nearly 20 minutes.
All cars just starting now.
So there we go. Okay, so into the session will go 99 Rover Racing BMW, the 72 BMW Junior Team M4, the number 7 Conrad Motorsport Lamborghini, the 22 Audi Sport Team Car Collection R8. There are 2 Falcon Motorsport BMWs in already. One is Pro, the 101, and one is a Pro-Am car, the 102. Also in the number 4 Mercedes from Get Speed. Interestingly, the sister car number 3 not yet in there, but 4 is. So that is the Maro Engel car. The Scherer Sport Team Phoenix number 16 car, so sister to Vincent Kolb's that we've just spoken about going off at Hatzenbach. Last year's race winners, Manthey Racing's Porsche number 1 is in. Uber Motorsport's Porsche, that's a 911 GT3R number 25, is also pre-qualified, along with a car collection Audi number 24, the Bilstein Mercedes AMG car 12, the full-on gold liveried Octane 126 that looks so striking. That 26 all-pro lineup is in. The Lion Speed by Car Collection Motorsport Audi, which is a Pro-Am driver combination, car 23 already in. And finally, the Schnitzelarm Racing Mercedes AMG, also a Pro-Am driving lineup. Number 34 is into the top 15, but slots 16, 17, 18 and 19 are yet to be decided, and not decided in this session or qualifying 3. That is all done in the first bit of top qualifying tomorrow.
Johnny, I'm getting a little update from first of our tweets of the afternoon or the evening session from Alan Price of Lanzarote Camel. Thank you very much, Alan. An update on the 8:30 entry that had the problem on the pole sitting car from TCR, wasn't it, on the outlap, the I-30N, that had an issue just before it went onto Nordschleife, where we thought the suspension or wheel had broken. Suspension's broken after coming off a curb and landing hard. So on an outlap, that's
okay.
I can only guess he's had to keep out of the way of somebody there, but that's not the sort of thing you'd normally do on an outlap, put it that way. But
no.
You've had to get out of the way of something quickly, go over a curb, and it just picks a bit of air, lands awkwardly, and I'm guessing therefore it's broken a lower wishbone.
Or a car in front of you on cold tyres because it's also on an outlap and you've had to suddenly jump out of its way. We didn't see the incident firsthand, so therefore can't describe it to you, but it's not a good moment to kick off a 3-hour session, because they're now going to try and get that car back, get it fixed, and get some night laps in, which might be a big old ask. 2 hours, 38 minutes to go. Sun starting to set, which makes this glowing effect down at Schwedenkreuz and Arenberg, which is exactly where Maro Engel is now, heading right underneath the road bridge and down into the Fuchsrohre, which is at the moment washed in this golden light, but give that another basically half an hour and it will be very, very different indeed, and you'll be relying entirely on those bright LED headlights. Falcon Motorsport having to find all sorts of spare parts that they didn't think they would need this early on in the session. Adam Christodoulou, you might be able to hear his voice in the background, chatting away to those at Get Speed. He's just realised he's on camera. Is that his dad? That might have been his dad that he hooked into.
Yeah, he did say Dad was coming this weekend.
Yeah,
yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So a family affair for Adam Christodoulou. And again, just the 3 drivers in each of the Get Speed Mercedes. The number 3 car with a bit more work to do than the sister machine, because it will have to go through 2 lots of top qualifying tomorrow and ideally finish in the top 4 of the first session. He's sharing with Maximilian Goertz and Fabian Schiller, so that is a gold, platinum and silver combination, but easily enough to be a pro lineup therefore when you add them all together.
Johnny, we've said many a time that what does the Nürburgring bring that's different? Not just the circuit, it's multi-layer racing. It's give it and it taketh.
Yeah.
It does it all the time. Mother Nature has her bit. She hasn't done that just yet, but we've got to get these laps in now. But what happened to that 8:30 TCR pole sitting car, which is still on pole, by the way? The time hasn't been bettered yet, so it's still there for the moment. It may not be, maybe a little bit second-hand at the moment, but it's still on pole for the moment. That's all that matters when the race comes round. But as you've just said there, we don't know what happened, but as you said, somebody on cold tyre, somebody moving out the way, somebody caught it. It could be collateral, it could be that chain reaction. 2 cars down the way, somebody has to move, and all of a sudden it's just caught them out. And this is what happens in multi-class racing all the time. 23 classes we've got here this weekend. And we're talking just the outlap to start the qualifying of the evening session. So imagine what the race is going to be like.
We're getting to the exciting part of this session now, because the full complement should be out on track, including Sheldon van der Linde in the 98 car. Now, I don't think Sheldon did that many laps in the Rover Racing BMW for qualifying 1. Certainly saw some time for John Edwards, Marco Wittmann and Nicky Katzberg. Sheldon will have done some circuits, but he didn't get the fastest time, which was an 8:14.771. And to make the point, that still stands as the quickest time even in this session, because all the times from Q1 are carried through into Q2. It is like it is one continuous session in effect, even though we've had many hours between the end of qualifying 1 and the start of qualifying 2, which was at 8:30 local time. And the BMW sets off in anger now with the South African at the wheel. We've got both of the van der Linde brothers in the race. as the TF Sport Aston Martin now appears on the horizon at the start of the Dottinger Hour. It is running in 9th position at the moment. Got Maxime Martin at the wheel, and he's been setting personal best times. Now the green squares indicate, as I say, PBs. I would imagine that's comparative to Q1 as well, so on course for perhaps a best time across both sessions here if he can continue this on. Teammates went quicker in sectors 1, 6 and 7 on this lap, but it's an 18.915, which does vault Belgian racer Maxime Martin to 4th place when you combine both of the sessions. So up provisionally onto the second row, but remember, at the end of qualifying 3 tomorrow, all the SP9 times are effectively wiped, and we start again for top qualifying.
Yeah, and don't forget, all drivers must complete 2 timed qualifying laps. So you've got to rotate your drivers through all that as well. So it's all well good putting that out. But of course, it's such a long lap to get back in. You say, yeah, you've got to complete 2 qualifying laps timed. Well, that's okay, but you then have the issue of, right, you've done your 2 timed laps, you've got to come in. You can't just coast round in 1 minute 30 and take it slightly easy. You've got 25 k's of the Nordschleife to do and keep it in one place, one piece, and keep it out of trouble.
Yeah. So have they got to be start line to start line? They can't be pit lane to start line as a time lap then?
No, start line to start line.
But you could, at the end of your second time lap, just do a Grand Prix lap and come in.
Yes.
So you wouldn't have to do the full Nordschleife again. But there isn't any getting away from doing the full Nordschleife to kick-start those 2 time laps, because you're not going to be at a high enough speed, really, to if you come out of the hairpin on the Grand Prix lap. And you'll want a bit of a sighter anyway, just to know what the track conditions are like. Jesse Krohn in the number 20 BMW, which is the entry from Schubert Motorsport. They have an M4, of course, as well, sharing that car with Alexander Sims, Jens Klingman and Nicholas Kruton, which is an interesting signing. Nicholas Kruton in a thing called the Le Mans Cup, which supports European Le Mans Series, but he's driving mainly prototypes this year. So I'm fascinated to see how he will get on in a top-level GT3 car. Clearly highly rated though at Schubert, and we will see some times from the young man later on tonight. I'm sure he'll need to be part of this session at some stage. Nearly half an hour of a long night qualifying done, 28 minutes into it, and no changes regarding the top 2 times. Still the 8:14.771 for Sheldon van der Linde's BMW, but a time set by Nicky Katzberg, and Christian Krognes's 8:15.936 keeps the 101 BMW second. So it's M4 GT3 from M4 GT3, then another BMW, of course, joins it up at 3rd position. I didn't mention the progress of the Schubert BMW and Jesse Krohn. He's got that into 3rd. So it is 3 of the, you were telling me the other night, must call it a roundel on the front of those cars. So 3 roundels at the sharp end.
It is a BMW corporate thing, yes, it is. It is a roundel, not the badge. The badge is the nomenclature on the right-hand side of the boot, whether it's an M3, an M4, a GT3 or a 240i or whatever.
Yeah.
It is a roundel.
Lucas Stoltz.
I'll just do the anorak up now and pull the hood up.
It's good. No, it's good. Useful information. Not quite sure what it's useful for, but we'll find out in due course.
You just divined my entire existence there, Johnny. Thank you.
We have got many hours to get through on Saturday night to Sunday.
Peak early, JP.
Sorry, but I'm sure we'll get a night stood together. So all of this fantastically interesting knowledge can pour out of your mouth during those. Into the Kleine Carousel for
trouble sleeping.
Lucas Stoltz. Glorious skyline here in the Eiffel Mountains. Nürburgring Castle in the background from the Middle Ages. And this place always has a twist in the tail, but at the moment conditions could not be better, and Lucas Stoltz is pursuing the number 1 Manthey Racing Porsche, winners last year when they ran as 911, and certainly 2 of the 3 drivers that were part of that winning lineup last year are back again. Michael Christensen and Kevin Estra joining in that number 1 car. Fred Makovici and Laurens Vanthoor, the 31-year-old Belgian. All 4 are platinum drivers, needless to say, and surely must start as I mean, there are so many favourites here this year, but we'll start as one of the big ones. Bearing in mind, Matteo Cairoli, who was in that winning trio last year, has moved across to an Italian team, but running two very German cars, the Dynamic Motorsport Porsches. And Cairoli, again, someone who is eligible to drive both of the Dynamic Motorsport Porsches. Now, is Lucas Stoltz going to be allowed to slither up the inside here of the Manthey Porsche of Fred Makovici? Yes, just about. So busy into the Yokohama S. The Octane 126 Ferrari is in this model as well. Car number 26, but they all just about get through. See, in the daylight, even though it's fading now, that looked relatively simple. I mean, it's not, no. But at the same time, we're not in race format yet, so everyone was really giving each other a bit of space there.
Yeah, we had 5 GT3 cars, SB9 category cars there.
Pretty much 5 abreast.
Sorry?
5 abreast into
exactly,
that first corner.
Boys, it's qualifying, and for you, it's actually free practice. It doesn't even count. But try telling that to a driver, you know?
I know.
Try telling that to a driver. It's, to me, this is one of the glorious times of a 24-hour race weekend. That I always like the twilight or the sunset, sunrise bit. I think that's just an absolutely fabulous time to race. Can be a pain as well, because you say they've got quite limited vision in the cars, and as the light drops in the tree, depending on where altitude and angle, it can suddenly just quite literally just blind you.
Yeah.
And never mind when it gets to night, you've got the lights behind you. But we'll come on to that when that session. Yellow flags being waved there on. Is that Dotting Ahoa? Yes, we've got. That's one of the Astons. That's the.
It looks like a Pro Sport.
It is.
Aston.
It is the Pro Sport Aston parked on the right-hand side, just on the rise up to the Tiergarten. So I'm guessing something mechanical with that, because it doesn't look to be. Looks all fair and square and undamaged. But yellow flags.
Now we got to work out which one of the 3 Pro Sport Racing Aston Martin Vantages it is.
It's the Swiss cheese one.
Okay. So is that 80, 81, or 82? It's because they've got 2 SP10 cars, and they've got an SP8T, which obviously is running outside of the normal GT4 regulations. So that's the reason why it runs in SP8T. Turbocharged 4-litre AMG engine in the front of those Aston Martins.
The 81 car.
81. Okay.
Sport car, yeah. So
I could have worked out it wasn't the 80 because that's in the pits.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why that's not stranded on the
I wouldn't do that to you, Johnny.
So the 81 is driver Walker in that.
Alexander Walker.
Alexander Walker, thank you. Sharing with Guido Dumoulin and Yevgen Sokolovsky, I'm going to say. The man from Dusseldorf. He started in the Yamaha Cup in 2011 and has done plenty of racing actually around the Nordschleife.
Yellow flags in, so that looks like that Aston's been pulled back behind the barrier, Johnny, so that's out of the way. I do think that is just something mechanical, or I'm hoping something starts.
So, yeah.
I'm going to, I exaggerate for clarity, but let's say a wire's come off the fuel pump, as my point as in something simple.
Yes.
As in, let's get it back out there in the race again, because less Astons is not good, more Astons is better.
I knew you'd say that.
I know.
The nice thing is...
I've done well. Come on. I'm trying to...
What are we?
I know.
34 minutes in.
I know.
And that's the first Aston Martin mentioned from Peter Snowden. Normally 34 seconds, doesn't it?
I've got much more on the bank, trust me.
The good news is, for Alexander Walker, he's not that far from home. So hopefully, you know, if it does require a tow, it's the last bit of the Dotting Ahoa. He actually pulled off neatly.
Well, he's got the right turn, isn't he?
True. Let's hope he doesn't have to do that, though. It's the entry route for the tourist laps. He's found that little bay on the run into Antonius Bucher. Meanwhile, Jesse Krohn not happy with getting the number 20 Schubert Motorsport BMW up to 3rd. He wants a little bit more here, but he's being massively delayed behind a Porsche from... Now, which class of Porsche is that? The
Cup car, isn't it?
Yeah, so it might be the only SP7 car in the race, or it could be a Cup 3 machine, of which there are lots. Difficult to tell that from a distance, but at least Jesse Krohn got through. He'd done an absolute best through the 3rd sector, but massively delayed.
I would say that's probably cost him 2-3 seconds.
So that's why he was... Well, he's still flashing the lights like crazy.
That's adrenaline.
Maybe
I don't mean the team Adrenaline Motorsport. That's just pure adrenaline, and he's... I think he's now Now he's slowed onto, or is it just a foreshortening of the camera view that we're getting on this that we're trying to describe? It's because the yellows are in on the Dottingerhoe now, because the Pro Sport Aston's been pulled behind the barrier, out of the way.
Jesse Krohn then will definitely stay out of the pits, because there's no way that he can come in with those cones in place. But have they got enough fuel on the Schubert Motorsport BMW to do yet another lap? The encouraging thing is the single lap speed is there. He just didn't, the traffic didn't fall for him, particularly later on. Into Tiergarten they will go, and he completes that lap. So as far as the various classes are concerned, we told you about the number 98 BMW, still sitting on the top of the shop from the earlier session. I think they're about to see potentially an improvement for... I see we're going to identify this Porsche. No, not quite. That was in front of Jesse Krohn's BMW. More on that to come. But leading SPX... But there's only 3 cars in that division, the 2 True Racing KTMs and the Glickenhaus number 706. It's the 117 KTM Crossbow GT2 that is leading SPX at this stage. Cup X has, surprisingly enough, a Teichmann Racing KTM Crossbow GTX, considering Cup X is basically made up of Teichmann Racing crossbows, but it's the 160 which is fastest so far. In Cup 2, it is the K. Kramer Racing Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car, the 992 iteration, number 126. And that could well be Moritz Krantz, actually. It's certainly a driver with the surname Krantz. Let's just double check on that. Yes, Moritz Krantz is joining Christopher Bruck, Carsten Kramer, who will be the K. Kramer that they're running something like 3 or 4 cars in this year's race, and Alexei Veremenko. But Krantz at the wheel of 127 at the moment. Sebastian Asch in the alternatively fueled 8.4-litre Dodge Viper, the GT3 car number 13. Pro Sport Racing's 82, which is not the car that got stranded on the Dottingerhoe, but the other SP10 Aston Martin Vantage. That car tops SP10. SP8 is the Dur Motorsport Aston Martin Vantage, number 150. FK Performance Motorsports Porsche 718 Cayman tops Cup 3. That's car 263. Manuel Lauch, despite not really being part of the session, his outlap resulted in something very unexpected going wrong with the front left of that car on the outlap, the Hyundai Elantra TCR. It runs in the TCR category and is still fastest there, despite it being fixed in the pits as we speak. That's car 830. The Subaru Technica International, the WRX, tops SP3T, number 114. I'm halfway through the 22 classes. Snowy wants to say.
Yeah, just very quick on the 830 there. I've actually seen footage now, and what happened was in the left and right, just before you go on to the Nordschleife, he did just basically go in too quickly. It's completely clear, devoid of any other cars, and just run in too deep, run across the grass. Therefore was on the inside, had to shortcut across, and has hit the curb so hard in an oblique angle, it's broken the suspension.
Oh, no.
And then gone onto the other side of the track with broken suspension.
Yes.
Then turned around at 180 degrees, gradually with the steering. That's what you and I saw the last bit of it with that wheel lock. So it does look, unfortunately, like it was self-induced. There's no other cars involved. There might have been something that's caused it to do that, to be fair.
Yes, and I have to say that one of the other Hyundais that was also in the vicinity rather distracted me, and I was looking at that car about to have a moment, which it didn't because the Elantra was behind it. Anyway, thanks to all who have made us aware of exactly what happened, and Peter drawn to some replays. We'll go back to the class leaders, because SP6 is a BMW M3 E46 GTR. That's the Hoffer Racing, the team from Switzerland, number 200 car. Huber Motorsport top SP7. Now, that's the only car in SP7, amazingly, this year. SP7 in the past has had 20-odd cars, but a lot of the Porsche Cup cars have found their way into other areas of the race. But the Hamprecht-driven Huber Motorsport 911 GT3 Cup 991, number 70, is at the top of the pile there. Steve Brooks in Cup 5, a class with a handful of BMW M2 Racing Cup cars from Adrenaline Motorsport. Number 871 is leading that. In SP4T, it is the Porsche 718 GTS number 718. Team Mattol Racing's Porsche Cayman 718 tops VT3. So that is for turbocharged hot hatches. Sports cars. We'll get to the VT2s for the hot hatches in a moment. But the Caymans are in VT3, and number 300 is leading that class. V6 for pretty standard street cars turned into racing cars, and the Porsche Cayman S981 leads the highest powered V class, V6, number 396 is that number. BMW 330i G20 is at the top of the VT2 front-wheel drive cars, the 330 that is. SP3 is topped by the number 119 Toyota Corolla Altis from Gazoo Racing. Remember, 120 had a pretty big T-bone thud at Yokohama S in qualifying one after it had an altercation with the CP Racing Mercedes. So much so the CP Racing Mercedes wasn't able to set a qualifying time in the first session today. 245 is the BMW M240i leader. We've got lots of racing cup cars in the race this year, and Schnitzelarm Racing topped that. 332 is the leader of the VT2 front-wheel drive category, so that is the Hyundai i30N. And finally, V5 and V4. V5 leader, Porsche Cayman 981 treble 4, and the 324 numbered BMW 325i tops V4 from FK Performance. A chance, therefore, to shed or put the spotlight on some of the other classes that are going so hard at it to get a good qualifying time here, because, as we've said, this could determine whether they start on pole position or not. They'll get this session, the remainder of it, which is 2 hours and 18 minutes, and tomorrow's hour-long session as well. Snowy.
Yeah, I was going to say, I had a look at that CP Racing Mercedes in the pits just before this afternoon, that qualifying session, and that instant it had. I'm going to quote Joe Foster, who was in the car at the time, and he just I said what happened, and his quote was as sanguine as ever. He said, "I just thought I'd get my badass move of the weekend out of the way first and get it done with," quote unquote. Apologies to any children listening, but it's again. It hit the door. We saw that, didn't we? We saw the TCR car with the door panel, the door skin. We thought it had been delaminated first, then we saw the damage, and it was actually hit by a Mercedes. And again, it was just two drivers, both thinking different things at different times. And are you going to go for it? And it's, I would put it down as 50-50. It kind of looked like there was leaving the door open. And unfortunately, the really bad phrase there, left the door open. Well, the door really did get opened by Joe Foster.
Yeah.
But it's the damage on the Mercedes. We just saw it on the Falcon car, didn't we? You said searching for bits and whatever. And that's just a little tap. But that Mercedes had a fair old thump in the door and that front left corner. And it did splitter, corner, lights, radiators, broke the wishbone, broke the steering rack, had to take all that out. And, you know, whilst the design to come apart, it's still a lot of work. And it's hours and hours to get that car, but it'll be out, and it's a 24-hour race. But they're typically laid-back Americans. They're just like, get it out of the way, it's done, that's it. No more incidents for the rest of the weekend, was their view. And
the driver, by the way, that was at the wheel of the Toyota, the Altis that we've been mentioning, Jum Supperfongs, or as he prefers to be known, Jum Grant. And his first Nürburgring 24 hours was back in 2015 with the same team. He raced in SP3 that year as well for Toyota Team Thailand, and had a decent finish within class. They ran an Altis that year too. We're talking 7 years ago now, so he's certainly not inexperienced around here, but a misunderstanding into turn one, the right-hand element of the Yokohama S, and so quickly things can go against you for both teams involved. The Hoffa Racing BMW heading now through the switchback at the start of the lap, and Hoffa topping their section of the race, as mentioned. Hoffa with multi-championships from elsewhere in motorsport disciplines, including the 24H series. And that Hoffa car is, just remind myself of the number, 200 with the Kroll family here in force. Lucas Stoltz. Now this is going to be a much better lap, I would say, for the German. He's gone green through the first 4 sectors, absolute best through sector 5 and 6, and a completely clear road ahead now for the number 12 Bilstein Mercedes. So perfect conditions and almost a perfect lap as far as traffic is concerned, Peter Snowden.
A driver's dream. You're on the Nürburgring. You're in the top category car you can drive. The AMG Mercedes, absolutely all just running a little step the back out, a little bit, tiny bit of oversteer on the exit there for Lucas Stoltz. But I don't think it would have cost me anything. It's just Jedi Reactions caught that in time. Absolutely, what a position to be in. That kind of car around here. Not only the perfect conditions in terms of temperature, helps the tyres, helps the engine breathes better, and then clear traffic as well. That's just clear track. I mean, how do you get, in a race situation, how do you get a clear lap around the Nordschleife, let alone for this? What have you gone through? 2-3 sections of it clear? Incredible. So Lucas Stoltz, not wishing to jinx it, but he's coming down towards Schwalbenschwanz, yes?
Yes.
Yeah, coming up to that, and then you've got
second
the last
concreted section.
Yeah, they go through the double 2 lefts there, then Galgenkopf, and onto round the outside of one of the TCR cars, into Galgenkopf, onto the Dottingerhauer, get the job done. Shouldn't really be an issue down the Dottingerhauer. It's what he encounters at the end for Lucas Stoltz going to Tiergarten. He's passed like one of the Caymans.
And a little bit further up from him is the 55 Landgraf Mercedes. I'm not sure that'll be a problem, though, because they'll be doing very, very similar speeds. The Cayman in between them might pose a slight issue. That's
going to be the car, the number 70 car, I think it is going to be the issue at Tiergarten. That could just hold it all up. And it can't be helped. They've got a right to be on the track as well.
Of course.
But through the kink, down the dipper, the roller coaster dip, as I call it, up the rise, left, right, left again, really close to that barrier, back to the right hand side, really slow bit, right and left, and again no run-off air, just kissing the barrier on the right hand side, past the marked off cones, gets a drag off one of the Caymans there, uses it across the line, pops out. What time does Lucas Stoltz do?
Third fastest, 8:16.176. Yeah, well, I think it could have been even better than that, actually, because as I mentioned, personal best through the first 4 sectors of the 9 around this 25-kilometre circuit. Then he went purple in Sector 5 and Sector 6, green in Sector 7, but it was in the final couple of sectors, the first of which, by the way, only takes just under 21 seconds to do, and the final sector 30 seconds, but that's what did for him in the end. He was 1.4 seconds slower than the best time still from qualifying 1, which is the 98 Rover Racing BMW and Nicky Katzberg's effort from earlier this afternoon. Get in touch with us. You can join the conversation, as always, at RSL_studio. Make sure you use the hashtag N24HRSL. N24HRSL.
I think more pertinently with that Lucas Stoltz lap there that you spotted was going to be a good one, Johnny, and it was a heck of a spot, and quite rightly you were. But we'd had 3 BMW M4 GT3s at the top, the SP9 category, but 3 different teams again. Rover Racing, Volkenhorst and Schubert were locking out the provisional top 3, if you like, the podium of qualifying, if there is such a phrase. You get what I mean, paraphrasing. But that Mercedes, that lap from Lucas Stoltz, puts it into its third, splits those BMWs, and they have been the car to have in the Nürburgring this year, to be honest, this new M4 GT3 car. And it is, there didn't appear to be an awful lot wrong with the outgoing M6, but this is it's just taking it on to another level again. And it's I think we had these conversations last year, Johnny, and I know Bruce and I certainly did, regarding the car was still winning. The M6, the outgoing model that we knew was going to be replaced, was still winning. Why replace it? And then you start to look at it. I had a good look around the BMW Junior car, and a great chat with Max Hesse and Dan Harper earlier on. More of that in the show later the weekend. But what the differences are with this new car and what it does, and why it performs better and what it does, and it's fascinating. And I'm listening to these 2 young lads. Obviously, a junior team gives it away, but you look at them and they go, "Hang on, your combined age is still less than mine."
When you add all them, yeah, I know.
Hang on a minute. That's only 2 of them, not all 3.
Oh, sorry.
I'm
sorry, misheard you. Yeah. The other thing we should remind ourselves, though, is that it's sort of quite easy to overlook that car because it's actually a Pro-Am machine. Now, the reason for that is because none of those guys are yet gold. They're so early on in their career. By the way, a car, by the officials, it's decided whether it's in the pro part of SP9 or the Pro-Am part of SP9 by the driver grading system, which is precious metals, bronze, silver, gold and platinum. And what they do is, if you're a bronze, you're worth 1 point. So bronze, un point. Silver is
Eurovision again.
Silver is 2, gold is 3 points, and platinum is 4. You add up those numbers, and then you divide by the number of drivers you've got. And if you are 2.4 or below, you're automatically Pro-Am. And for those guys, they're in Pro-Am, but they could easily finish on the overall podium for me in the junior team.
Yeah, of course, don't forget on those precious metal ratings that only certain pairings can share. So you can't have 2 golds, that kind of stuff. You've got to be careful how you share them.
Well, I mean, we've got teams with 4 platinums in the same car, but they are automatically a pro entry.
Yes.
But yes, I mean, it depends what you're aiming for, but there's nothing to stop the BMW junior team, if they start to become golds, from entering in pro instead. I want to just give a mention to Falcon Motorsport. It's a good job they do not bear grudges, because after Patrick Pilet had his moment in the 44, he's now driving the 33. Now, surely they're very confident that he's not going to smash in the front of that car as well. But by the look of the 3 feet that he just lifted off the ground at Brunchen, he is not hanging back. What he's done to Martin Ragginger is, you know that car I just smashed into the back of Nick Tandic? You can have that one now, because Ragginger's in the 44 and Pilet's taken over the pristine 33 car. Clearly he is quite highly rated in that team.
It's like being back at school and having your homework mocked, isn't it? Patrick could do better. Here's another one. Go and do it properly.
Here's another a blank sheet of paper.
Just get given another GT3 Porsche. God, off you go.
It's a nice position to be in.
I wouldn't be asked twice. Put it that way.
No, maybe not. And there are probably several other drivers in this field likewise. But Pilet getting a feel of both cars. And the 33 is 12th fastest at the moment. The 44 car a little further down the order because of the dramas at the start of the session. And you've got to feel for Austrian Martin Ragginger, because he now has to take that car out and report back to the team as to how it's feeling. It actually shouldn't have done too much damage to the setup. I think most of the brunt of that was taken superficially by the front right wing. The Octane 126 Ferrari comes back into pit lane. And all of a sudden, I noticed Matteo Cairoli starting to light up the timing screens for one half of Dynamic Motorsport. The 28 car's now 5th. And, well, has been top 4-ish anyway, but he's setting a couple of personal best times on that lap. 8:15.783 is the theoretical best time. Cairoli's last lap was about 3 seconds
away.
away.
Porsche going down the back,
oh, yes.
the barrier backwards here. That looks, is that the 25 car? That's the 2025 entry. Which shouldn't be doing that. That's the Huber Motorsport car. That's a 901 Gen 2. That's an SP9 category car. Now, I'm not sure how much of it is actually scraped down the barrier, and I'm not quite sure where it is. It's not on our, I think it's around marshal post 125, 126. So let me just do a quick bit of numbering on that for you.
It's Klaus Raider, by the way. Now, this is another Pro-Am car, and he was being overtaken by one of the Falcon Motorsport BMWs, or at least it was an attempted overtake. That's over the rise into...
Yeah.
Is that coming out of Brunchen?
It's going to Bergwerk. Going to Bergwerk, yeah.
And 2 into 1 does not go.
No. And unfortunately, the Porsche's come off significantly worse there. It's just turned it around 180, but it's gone across onto the grass, just clattered the barrier hard on the rear right corner, which is going to do toe links and all sorts on that rear suspension. And then it's clattered again, a secondary hit. I'll be surprised if that car turns around and rejoins under its own steam. Give it a go, by all means. But dramas again, sort of just under an hour in, Johnny, into this first evening session for the 25 Huber Motorsport SP9 entry.
I'm not sure how many chopper cameras we've got in the sky tonight, but I think that was just a bit of luck, actually, that the helicopter was right above that moment, and easy to read from the officials' perspective as to who was slightly ahead going into that corner. It was the Falcon Motorsport BMW, and I wonder whether that was the same car that was involved in the Session 1 incident with the intervention vehicle. Falcon do tend to paint their 3 BMW M4s in very similar colours. 101, easily the best so far, but you would expect that because that's the only pro in the trio of Falcon entries. And Car 101 now with Andy Soucek at the wheel. Yeah, I wonder whether it was Brunchen and being shown
right.
on our track map as well, coming out of Wipperman actually.
Yeah.
And on the approach to Brunchen, it's over one of the rises, and Klaus Raider, unfortunately, having to be helped from the car. I wonder whether maybe one of the pedals in the pedal box have caught his ankle at a peculiar angle, and he's just having to sit down with marshals in attendance. I should make the point.
Potentially just winded.
Could be, yeah, because he's hit the barrier rather severely there, and not a nice situation to be in. But the great thing about this being a modern racetrack, even though it's very much old school as well, but they do not take any chances regarding recovery and medical situations either. So there is an on-site medical centre here, and Klaus Raider, I'm sure, will be taken to that to get a check over. What it provides, whilst it's not a full course yellow, we don't get those here. We get local cautions, and there are actually 2 out on the track. Snowy's just detected from the tracker. So there is a slow zone.
That's where I misled. My apologies.
Bergberg.
There was a slow zone at Bergberg, and I put 2 and 2 together and got 5. So my apologies. You're absolutely right. The car was at Brunchen.
So that's the tricky right-hander as the car starts to rise and then on towards Kesselchen. And what I can't see is a stranded car there. That might just be down to barrier damage from earlier on, 2 unconnected incidents. 3.5 minutes or so to go until the first 60 minutes is under everybody's belt for this evening session. And Antti Burri is in the Hyundai i30N, which is car number 831. He has just negotiated Adenauer Forst and is heading down the hill now on towards Exmüller, being the lowest part of the circuit. So still no change regarding the fastest time of the sessions. 8:14.771 set by Nicky Katzberg earlier on today, and the window of opportunity for the 98 Rover Racing BMW hasn't quite arrived for them to improve. I'm sure that's not really a priority of theirs though, because these times in SP9 essentially don't matter. They really start to count tomorrow evening at 10 to 6. The 101 car now being driven by Andy Soucek, still up there because of a Christian Krognes time set late on in qualifying 1 earlier today. That's an 8:15.936. And car 12 is a new time recently set by Philipp Ellis in the number 12 Mercedes-AMG Team Bilstein GT3. So Philipp Ellis sharing with Luca Stoltz and Raffaele Marciello. Now we saw Luca going very well in that, and he got up to 4th. And by the looks of things, he's handed over to British/German driver Philipp Ellis, and he's gone even quicker. So 8:16.176 is only 1.4 seconds away from the car that is in provisional pole position. You've got the 20 Schubert Motorsport BMW, and that's Nicholas Cruton now at the wheel, having taken over from Jesse Krohn. Matteo Cairoli in the 28 Dynamic Motorsport Porsche is in 5th position. Aston Martin still up there, had climbed as high as 4th. It's dropped a little now to 6th place for TF Sport, and that's being driven by David Pittard. The 27 Porsche will be Mathieu Jaminet for TalkSport WRT, and that is in 7th position ahead of the number 4 Mercedes for Team Get Speed, and Jules Gounon enjoying some seat time there. I think that's still a Maro Engel time though from earlier on at 8:19.3, and to complete the top 10 in the fastest class, which is SP9 or otherwise known as GT3, it is the 15 Audi Sport Team Phoenix Audi R8 for Kelvin van der Linde, and then the 16 car, which is the Scherer Sport Team Phoenix, so sister machine basically at that crew, and currently driving that will be Kim Louis Schramm, the 25-year-old German. We have 2 minutes beyond official sunset now, Snowy, but there's still quite a bit of ambient light around on the Grand Prix circuit, and the artificial stuff really does illuminate the pit lane smartly indeed. But again, this light, if anything's getting better, and what I'm really enjoying as we sign off for our little segment is quite how full the campsites are being. I mean, tonight will be a shadow of what Saturday night is as people move in, but there's already this great sense of atmosphere.
Well, it's kind of like free practice and qualifying for the campers as well, isn't it? Same sort of thing. I have to say, in that we've just literally, the clock comes into exactly that first hour completed. More action than I would have expected in that first hour, and certainly more action in the SP9 GT3 category cars. We've had some serious names out there that have had issues I wouldn't have expected. Huber Motorsport, the Patrick Pillay in the Falcon car. We obviously haven't had the CP Porsche, CP Racing Mercedes out just yet, but I just wouldn't have expected quite so much incidents at the very top step of the because it doesn't matter at the moment. These cars don't need to qualify at this point. It's still they still don't. This is not qualifying. We said at the very beginning of this, it's a free practice within a qualifying session, so they don't need to take the risks. I'm not saying they are, but they seem to have got caught out. So just more cars in the SP9 category have had more incidents than I would have expected in that first hour, Ben.
Indeed, we actually had 42 minutes of green flag running so far in this session, which is more than we saw in the first qualifying session, which was supposed to run 90 minutes. Didn't quite run 90 minutes as we had an early checkered flag to allow the timetable to stick to the schedule for the other support races that we had going on. But this really, the first code 60 of our session that has run 12 minutes so far. We've had some slow zones. We have had some yellow flags. But all of the contact that we've seen in the SP9 class, the GT3 cars that we've seen getting together with slower traffic and also their own class, has resulted mainly in just small pockets of yellow flags and drivers getting the cars back to the pits to be fixed. So quite a bit of work going on circuit right now with various different code 60 zones and yellow flag zones being added to the list as they repair barriers as well as recover cars potentially facing the wrong direction. Let's just check in with our class leaders as we tick over into the second hour and we get ourselves changed over. Rover Racing BMW M4, the number 98, is still the fastest car overall and fastest in SP9 after their time set in the first of our qualifying sessions earlier today. We've got KTM Expos both in SPX and Cup X, the GT2 car of True Racing. The 117 machine is fastest in SPX and the Techman Racing 160 is the fastest in Cup X. In Cup 2, it's Kramer Racing's Porsche 911 992 GT3 Cup car. And in the alternative fuels class, the number 13 Dodge Viper CC, a converted GT3 car, which is running some kind of tombola in the paddock. I need to get my head around exactly what's going on with that team, but there's plenty of hospitality from them, and a tombola you can enter for €5. I'm not sure what you win. In the SP10 class, it's Pro Sport Racing, Aston Martin Vantage, the 82 machine leading that. SP8T is also an Aston Martin from Door Motorsport. Cup 3 has FK Performance at the top of their timing in the Porsche 718 Cayman. The Hyundai Elantra is leading the TCR class. That's the car we saw off the road at the very start of this session, and the car that also took victory last year, the at that point brand new Elantra. Subaru WRX STI is leading SP3T, the Subaru Technical International over from Japan. Hoffa Racing's BMW M3 E46 GTR leads in SP6, the number 200 machine. The number 70 machine leads SP7. That is Huber Motorsport's Porsche 911 991 car. BMW M2 Racing Cup leading, obviously, the Cup class from Adrenaline Motorsport. So that's the 871. Porsche 718 GTS 718 leads SP40. VT3 is led by Team Manthol Porsche Cayman 718. The Porsche Cayman 981 from Adrenaline Motorsport leads the V6 category, which is the 396. The 245 leads the BMW M2 Cup class, which is Slitschlam Racing. Adrenaline Motorsport also lead the VT2 Hecker class. SP3 is led by Toyota Gazoo Team Thailand in their Atlantis, the 119 machine. Mike Epps in the Hyundai driving an experience. Hyundai i30N leads V2T front-wheel drive. And then we've got the V5, which is also Adrenaline Motorsport. They've got a few cars, the Cayman 981. And finally, the V4 class is led by FK Performance BMW 325i. And for the first time this evening, and the first time all day actually, we hear the beautiful voice of Brad as Joe Bradley joins me for the next hour. Wonderful time of day to be commentating here at the Nürburgring.
We've got the romantic hour, haven't we?
Yeah, we have.
The sun going down, the golden light that's, you know, just casts a romantic air over the Nordschleife, and what a time of the night, what a time of the evening. I've got to just say, Ben, something that Snowy mentioned, and I've got to reiterate what my thoughts were as well. The way that we saw these drivers come out tonight, it's kind of indicative to me that we are chasing perhaps some sort of qualifying setup, because we saw Patrick Peeler there very early in the session, in fact lap 1, damaged the Porsche against the back of Nick Tandy's Porsche. But for me, the body language of the car was that they were on it from the very off, and you would say, you know, why? It's effectively a free practice session for the SP9 category. They're clearly preparing for tomorrow night and all that qualifying run. And you know, I'm not quite sure. With an 8 minutes 14.7, the fastest time so far, I'm just not sure just what we're seeing at the moment, and whether are we going to see an 8.12, are we going to see an 8.10? You know, just how much of a qualifying simulation are we seeing? Certainly from driver attitude, they were massively on it from the very outset.
Pile jumping into the sister car and doing exactly the same thing, going straight out hard in the in his second machine for Falcon. So the first car, a little bit of contact with the back of Tandy's car, which actually did quite a bit of damage to the Falcon machine, but then Pile is in both cars, so he then went out and did the same thing, and again was very, very aggressive when he headed back out onto circuit. Beautiful light that we have around the circuit here. As I say, the campsites are well filled and will continue to be filled across tonight and tomorrow. Bank holiday today here in Germany, and an opportunity to see the top 10 from our SP9 class, which we've already said doesn't actually count for anything because it is simply really a practice session for them. It's qualifying for everyone else, but SP9 are effectively just practicing because they are all through into qualifying, which we will see tomorrow, which is split now into two sessions, a Q1 and a Q2, although confusingly this is actually qualifying 2, but it's not the same as the qualifying 2 that we'll see tomorrow in the actual qualifying session.
Tonight on Dig That Hole.
Yeah.
Ben's going to explain qualifying. Yeah, tomorrow night is what it's all about, isn't it? Well, for the category where we're invariably going to see the overall winner, as we normally do at the Nürburgring 24 hours, and we kind of focusing on them for a moment. That session, at that time that I mentioned there, the 8:14, that came from the earlier session. We are seeing quicker times tonight, and we call this the golden hour. Why do we call it the golden hour? Not just because of the light and that beautiful honey-coloured glow that's coming across the horizon. No, it's because the air's cool, the track's beginning to cool off, the tyres are working, they're not being overly worked and overheated, and also the air is actually thicker, quite literally scientifically thicker. And the more air and oxygen you can get into an engine, the more it'll burn and the more power you have. So we may see some very quick times about to manifest.
A car that I don't think we've seen too much of in this session is Lawrence Van Thor. That car is yet to set a time. It's the number 15 machine from Audi Sport Team Phoenix, and he is on a lap now, lighting up the timing screens about halfway around the lap at the moment. But Van Thor looked to be on a bit of a push here. Are we under code 60 still?
Well, the problem is, Ben.
Yes, we are, yeah.
Yeah, we've also got a huge slow zone just out of Hoeracht all the way through Wipperman towards Brunchen. We're down to, what is it, an 80-kilometre slow zone, and it's been there quite some time, so some barrier repairs going on there, but that's going to stifle the times getting any better. We might see some personal bests, but we're not going to see a maximised, optimised, let's say, lap time right now until they sort that out.
We also saw very early on the KCMG Nick Tandy number 18 machine assaulted by Patrick Pilet, and it does seem as though Nick Tandy has stayed aboard that car, did a 7-lap stint, but then since then has been in and out of the pits a couple of times. Didn't look as though there was any damage to the car, so he got away with it much better than the assaulter, Patrick Pilet, who really did, from a very light touch, take quite a few body parts off the front right corner of that car.
He just got on the gas a little bit too early, didn't he? And it just smoked the back of... but that's what I mean, Ben. It was like we were talking earlier, watching the session, weren't we? It's like, why such urgency at this stage of the proceedings?
Dries Santhoor has now entered that 60-kilometre slow zone, so all of those purple and green sectors that we've seen promising a car. And actually, the Hoffa Racing Porsche is still there, hasn't been recovered, and still facing the wrong direction. That's been a good couple of moments since we went to Code 60. What is it now? 16 minutes. So obviously a difficult recovery spot to pick up that car. It's quite heavily slapped the barrier on driver's side, but nobody's picking it up yet.
It's incredible, the logistics of how this racetrack operates, and the recovery of cars from anywhere on this just over 15-kilometre circuit. There are access points for recovery vehicles and the like. And can you imagine what's going on in race control? On a conventional track, it's relatively, we've got a car over there and that needs recovering. It's like, how do we get to where we need to be without going all the way around the 15Ks with a big truck? Because there are access points, and I'm surprised because we've seen plenty of slow zones and car recoveries pretty much everywhere around the Nordschleife, and it's a bit long. We've been out there a bit long, and this slow zone's been there for quite some time now, so I'm not really sure what the problem is exactly.
Dries Santhoor back up to full racing speed on the newly resurfaced Dottingerhohe. That was done over the winter, and so brand new tarmac for about 2.5 kilometres all the way back to the start finishing straight, including all the link roads that are used in the NLS, and when this is an operating circuit for effectively a tourist attraction, the opportunity to do a lap. You don't go onto the Grand Prix circuit, the part that we use. You turn right before you enter the Grand Prix loop. And that has all been resurfaced, and so much smoother, because it was 37 years the last time it was resurfaced, and so the way that they had done it is dig all the way down to get rid of everything that was there before, dig 1 metre down, and then reconstruct the underlayers as well as then the top surface, which when you resurface the Grand Prix circuit you don't need to do, because it's all been created much more recently and to modern techniques. But of course 1927 was when the Nordschleife was created initially, and therefore the techniques have progressed since then.
They've certainly smoothed out the bumps, haven't they?
Yeah.
It's a flat-out stretch of racetrack here down the Dottingerhohe through the left-hand kink towards Tiergarten. It certainly gets your attention. You don't tend to try and turn the wheel through that kink. You kind of think the car through there, and before you know it, you've turned left. But yeah, lack of graffiti was the biggest thing I noticed there when we got here. It's like, oh, that's been resurfaced. Of course it has, because there's no graffiti on the track anymore. I'm sure the fans will put pay to that very quickly. Not at the moment though. We've got a live racetrack.
Fastest lap in last year's race went to Alexander Sims. In fact, Alexander Sims has had the fastest lap of the race for the last 2 years, and it was an 8:12 that he managed, an 8:12.7 that he managed last year, which is the fastest record. But of course, a lap record comes from the race, and therefore they tend to go quite a lot quicker in qualifying. An 8:08 was the fastest that we saw in qualifying 1 last year. So we're quite a way off that pace right now, but you have to say with all of the code 60s and the yellow flag zones that we had both in our first qualifying session and now in this much longer second qualifying session, there hasn't been a great amount of time to get a clean lap in, because even if you did have a clean lap, there was a localized yellow around the circuit for quite a few periods of the first part of our qualifying session this evening.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see any qualifying simulations. You might be able to do that in sectors and then piece the sectors together. I'll give you an idea of where the car's at, I'm pretty sure, and that's why we're seeing drivers rotated through the teams that are going to be going for the overall pole position tomorrow. It's a unique place, this, in so many ways, isn't it? Not just, I think I've coined the phrase of recalibrating your brain to the Nürburgring, certainly for the N24, with a 15, just over 15 kilometre lap. You've got over 8 minutes lap time, and you've got to recalibrate your brain. Some of the sectors here are as long lap time wise as a conventional circuit, and add in the element, the other unique element I think is the fan base and the fans that come out here, and they've been coming out here for over a week now and constructing their makeshift grandstands. It's quite palatial, some of them. The sound systems that you get out there on the track side would not look out of place at a stadium concert. The music that's blasting, not really my type. There's no ABBA out there, Ben. It's all sort of hard heavy metal, thrash metal. There's no Dancing Queen going on out there.
I think one of the things I also notice about the fan base here in comparison to other large-scale events that we see around the world is that it does seem to be a slightly more of there's a lot more partners. You bring your girlfriend to this event. You find a lot of couples wandering around the paddock, many more than you would see for me at any other events. And there is, because of that party element, there are many people out in the campsites that only have a partial interest in what's actually happening on circuit. They just use it as an excuse to come to a field in the middle of nowhere and have a very, very exceptional party. Actually, back in 2013, I went to the Indy 500, and there was quite a lot of people with a similar attitude that were never even going into the track to watch the race. They were just there for the great party.
I'm pretty sure there are people who come here, get drunk very quickly, and stay drunk for 4 days. No question. Have you been out there, Ben?
Oh yes.
Yeah. So have I. And you know what? It may be a drunken party, but it's a very friendly drunken party, and very generous fans. They love their racing. But like you say, there are people here for the event, and that's what I love about the place. There's a fever that is building towards the race start on Saturday, and when you see the fans come out to the barriers and they start bring the barriers with whatever they have, and that sound reverberating around the barriers. We'll see that on Saturday and talk about that more. It's just got this festival feel.
And of course, an event that we haven't been able to see for the last couple of years due to the restrictions around the world, and just wandering around the paddock and being part of that paddock today, you suddenly go, this is what we do it for. This is why we love these events. I've been to this particular race for a few years, never with the opportunity to speak on the 24 hours itself, but plenty of opportunity to enjoy the festivities as we still have that code 60 around the back end of the circuit. And
it's still for that car, Ben, isn't it?
It's still sitting there without
Porsche.
Not being recovered. There is no access road on the other side of it. It does seem like a very confined part of the circuit for a recovery vehicle to get to.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time we've seen a recovery vehicle enter one of the access points and make its way around. I'm not pretty sure of where, but the area of that track, Horak through Whipham and down to Brunchen, it's quite commonplace to see cars going off there. Certainly Brunchen. It's one of the most demanding parts of any racetrack anywhere in the world. So it's not uncommon to see cars losing it or having problems. So I'm not really sure what's going on here, because we have seen that car there for quite a number of minutes now. It's getting towards what? It's getting towards half an hour, isn't it?
We have code 60 for 25 minutes, and it would have been there under yellow flag for a couple of minutes before that. So I'd say, yes, the incident happened at least half an hour ago. There's no one tending to the vehicle, we must say that. The car is now being left there. The driver has been taken away by the marshals, and there is a safety car which is kind of protecting that particular vehicle from being in close quarters with any car moving on track. But as you say, the marshals are so good here at recovering vehicles around the circuit, well trained in it, and it done in such a safe way that it's surprising to see that car there for such a long period of time.
Scary, but safe.
Yeah.
Some of the recoveries that we've seen come over a blind brow, and there's a recovery truck, a flatbed, going at 40 miles an hour. Yeah, it is a unique place in so many ways, so many ways. Just looking down the order, the Cup 2 leader at the moment, the Kramer Racing car. We've got finally got the recovery truck there, Ben. Maybe it's taken its time. It may have been dinner time or something.
I mean, it's about as far away from the paddock as it could possibly be, isn't it?
Yeah, but like I say, there are access and egress points around the track, and the car will be recovered onto the back of that flatbed. It's about to be lifted now. We've got the what's it called, the hydraulic arm, the high-ab, about to lift the car on, and then once that car is placed on there, it will make its way around the track. Are we seeing a replay of the incident? I think we are. So that Porsche that is about to go onto the flatbed will soon be out of the way, and that, Ben, will give us a clear track through Whipperman. And then I think with the sun still going down, we've still got golden hour here, and I'm sure the teams are gearing up for when that track clears. I can't see any other hindrances around the whole of this 15k track. So I'm pretty sure the teams will have it in their mind that now's the time to give it a go and just see what sort of lap times we can put in. It
was contract between themselves and one of the Falcon Horse BMWs. I don't know if we identified if it was the 101 or 102 machine, but that was the reason why the Porsche ended up stationary down at Whipperman and facing the wrong direction. It's now been turned around, facing the correct direction, be put on the back of the flatbed, and it'll be good to go back to a fully green circuit for a moment, just to see if we can light up the timing screens before we go into darkness, because no doubt once the darkness really descends around this circuit, which for many parts of it is surrounded by forest and therefore incredibly dark. Other parts, of course, have a lot of light thanks to the campsites around, and there are floodlit parts of the circuit, but when you really go into the forested areas, then you really don't have any perception of where you are at all, other than by memory and the lights that are trying their best to illuminate the front ahead of them.
Now the 72 BMW M4.
BMW Junior team, that is.
Yeah, that car with Daniel Harper at the wheel. We've still got lots of blue lights in recovery vehicles, so we're not quite clear yet. I can tell you, everybody, that the Porsche is now on the flatbed, just being secured to that flatbed, so it can't be very much longer. We're just coming up to 97 minutes remaining, so plenty of time to see some simulated runs.
Yeah, and that BMW number 72 is run by the BMW Junior team, an academy effectively that is based here just down the road in the small, I guess you would call it a hamlet of Nürburgring, just under the castle that is so famous overlooking this circuit. And they have a little apartment there, and the three of them live together and have a training regime. They had simulators in their front room, all three of them, to be able to train, and then they do plenty of laps around this Nordschleife circuit, including all of the NLS races.
So even on their downtime, they're on the sim.
The whole program every day is dictated to them by BMW and a program to support them. Yeah, this is their second year in the academy, because last year they entered this race in a GT4 car, whereas this year they are in the full fuel BMW GT3 machine.
So we've got some official information coming in. Car 44 under investigation, car 102 and car 245 under investigation.
44 being Falcon Motorsports.
Yeah. 102, I can tell you, Ben, is the...
Is that the Falcon Horst?
That's the Falcon Horst.
Okay, so that then...
BMW.
That then shows us that it was the 102 machine that made contact. Now we need to find out who was in the car at the time, which is, thanks to our timing partner, very, very easy.
I don't know what part the number 245 played. Now that's the Schnitzelarm Racing BMW M240i. That might. Now I'm not going to put him in the bracket of being involved in that incident at all. But you never know.
Well, we also had an accident down at Bergwerk at the same time, if you remember. There was two separate yellow flag zones, so perhaps that is something that we didn't see.
Cause or effect, isn't it?
Yeah.
If the 245 has come to a halt earlier, just before those two cars tripped over it, perhaps. We're just assuming and presuming here. Well, keep an eye on the official screen and see if anything comes of that investigation. We haven't quite cleared the obstruction at Wipperman, and now, as we do that, there's another slow zone about to appear at Brunchen. So we're slowly getting rid of the slow zones through Wipperman. There's the recovery truck. That's why we're seeing that slow zone progress around the Nordschleife as the recovery truck makes its way and finds an access point to exit the track. So we'll keep an eye on that, and when that clears, we are go, aren't we? This, I'm hoping we're going to see some quick runs just to see what we can get out. I'm getting the clear. I'm getting the all clear at Wipperman. So the teams have got the same information as that I have in front of me. So I think, Ben, we've got a clear racetrack.
102 was driven by Ben Tuck at the time of the incident down there at Wipperman. Ben was on his fourth lap of eventually 5. He did come into the pits to have the car checked and then went out and did one more lap before handing over now to Jörg Müller. And Jörg Müller was the driver. Was this the same car that ended up in the front of the Audi recovery vehicle earlier in the day? It was one of the two Vulcanhorsts that ended up rolling into the back, and it was Jörg Müller in the car. But unfortunately, Jörg is driving both, so not sure whether it's the 101 or 102. But either way, Vulcanhorst having a bit of an exciting start to the weekend.
We've got Jordan Pepper in the number 7 Lamborghini, who has put in personal bests, and now he's gone purple. He's into sector 7 now. 3 more sectors to go, 7, 8 and 9. So Jordan Pepper is about to improve on that 30th place. He's in the number 7 Conrad Lamborghini Huracan.
Conrad colours on that car as well.
So I'll keep an eye on sector 7 as that one comes in. Sector 7, one of the sector 7 is in fact the longest sector, over 2.5 minutes usually. So that's a conventional lap of anywhere, really. That's quite a long. That's a lap of Spa, isn't it? 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
That's just sector 7 here. That's what I mean about recalibrating your brain.
Axel Jeffrey shares that car with Michele Di Martino as well in the Conrad Motorsport colours, run by Franz Conrad himself. He will be here. We nearly saw him in a car a couple of weeks ago at Spa-Francorchamps, but he did a bit of damage to himself in the lead up to the event, and therefore had to leave. It was actually Axel Jeffries who was showing an LMP3 car with, and Axel ended up having to do the driving on his own. Jeffries running under a German licence here, but we better know him as a South African, and I would say the same for Jordan Pepper is South African.
South African,
but, my entry list saying he's English and he's based out of London.
Right, based out of London. I think his nationality is South African.
Yeah.
He might be racing under a British licence, of course. That's why it has his nationality down as GB. No improvement so far, but my estimation is he's just finished sector 7. I'll just try and find out. Yeah, Jeffries is from, he's not South African actually, he's Zimbabwean. He's from Zimbabwe. So apologies to Axel.
Yeah, one of the chief instructors at the Dubai Autodrome. Makes his living out there, and obviously got a nice partnership going with Conrad Motorsport this year to Jumpy driving in all kinds of different cars, and partnership with Jordan Pepper.
He's in sector 8. We'll keep an eye on it. He's went all green and purple in sector 6 and 7. So he's on course to improve where he is. And again, Ben, I suggest that is a qualifying simulation run, just to find out where they're at with regard to setup, engine settings, etc. So a really fast lap time from Jordan Pepper.
Previously, of course, a Bentley Works driver. I was trying to remember who he was a Works driver
Bentley,
for, but sadly, Bentley no longer with their headline program. There's still Bentleys knocking around in various GT3 series, but without the kind of work support they once had, and therefore they dropped their Works team, and Jordan finding his feet once more. Also related to Tasmin Pepper, who now the W Series exists and everyone knows about it. Tasmin was part of the W Series field for the first season.
Sister,
yeah, and he's the younger brother, in fact, of Tasmin.
It may be that you go green and purple all the way around, but it can easily slip away from you through that very tricky section off the Dottinger Hole into the Tiergarten, and it's very easy to be sucked in through there. And you just try and
unfortunately,
keep the momentum.
We've got yellow flags on the Dottinger Hole as well, the end of the lap.
We have. We've got. Can't see if we've got any. Someone's
expiring down there. Now it goes green again, so he may well be able to get away with this. And, classic Nürburgring Nordschleife lap for him. The track is yellow, but he's not on the bit of the track that is yellow, potentially, and therefore is able to continue at speed.
I think they'll be happy with that, though, Ben. There were personal bests in all of the sectors. Personal best in Sector 6. I'm still waiting for, in fact, has it come through? No, I'm still waiting for his Sectors 8 and 9 to finish. He's kind of overdue for me, so I'm not sure. That might just be my timing screen glitching a little. And Franz Conrad, you mentioned Franz, former winner here, of course, at this event. I'm not going to say when, because I'll give away his age then.
One of the few non-German teams to win here at the 24 Hours of Nürburgring. 50th anniversary, of course. But many of the brands and many of the teams that have taken victory here, German, Manthey Racing with plenty of victories. The last time we saw a non-German team win was back in 2015 with Team WRT running an Audi. Then before that, you have to go back to Conrad and Biagzi, who were winning in BMWs back in the 1990s. That was the last time. And the last time we saw a German branded car take victory was back in 2002 when we had the Chrysler Vipers that took victory 2 years on the trot.
We've had the number 18 KCMG team called to the clock of the courses office. That's the Porsche, of course. Dennis Olsen, Josh Burden, Nick Tandy, Bamba. Not sure why.
I mean, they got assaulted.
They were assaulted. Maybe they've been asked to explain why. Because he did have a slow traffic in front of him. We're talking about the incident at the very beginning of this session. Car 100 is under investigation. That is the Falkenhorst BMW of Henry Falkenhorst, Friedrich von Bohlen, Jörg Brewer and Andreas Ziegler.
So are we now, has 102 gone up and said, it wasn't me, sir? You've got yourself mixed up. It's actually 100.
Yeah.
Quite possible.
The wrong Falkenhorst BMW.
It's quite possible.
That hasn't happened before, has it? That hasn't happened before, surely.
Now, where is that Lamborghini that was down in 30th position? I think it came into the pits at the end of that lap and changed driver. So we never got a completion of the lap from Jordan Pepper.
That would explain why he's yet to...
Although I didn't think you could do that. I didn't think the track was laid out in such a way that you could go into the pits at the end of the lap. I thought you had to complete the lap and then go round.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
There is no pit entrance off the main straight out of the Tiergarten. You've got to go all the way around the Grand Prix track.
Which
and
means...
You basically go in the back door.
So he must have hit that yellow flag zone then to not improve his lap time. Better lap time from the number 99 Rover Racing BMW M4. Conor De Filippi aboard that machine now, an 8.19.054. So you can get better pace out of the car. The engine note you can hear behind my voice is the 98 machine, so the teammate, which is the fastest car out on circuit thanks to Nicky Katzberg at the very start of qualifying 1. Marco Wittmann is aboard that car now, set a fastest second sector of anybody, but so far has not even gone green in any of the further sectors, and has had a bit of traffic and had a little wiggle, a bit of a moment as he throws it into the Kleiner Carousel, coming to the end of the lap. Lights vigorously flashing to let the slower traffic ahead know that he's coming through, and he is a faster car. There's no knowing sometimes when you're in those slower machines what is approaching. Quite hard to really work out the closing speeds of the cars behind, and it's simply just a wall of white light. So actually the flashing does help a little bit in knowing how fast that car is approaching. Now flat out on the Dottinger Höhe. No slipstream, no cars ahead of him to benefit, and we did see when Katzberg did his lap, he did have a bit of traffic. I think it was the KTM Crossbow that he was following, the SPX machine, that gave him a really good slipstream up the Dottinger Höhe. Marco at the moment 6 seconds off that ultimate pace from Katzberg. So this will not be an improvement from Marco Wittmann through the final couple of turns, and comes to the line, and it's over at 8:20. So finishes the lap 8:20.985. As I say, no improvement. Possibly the best in this session for that car, but certainly still the fastest time ultimately is Katzberg's time, which we saw in Q1, which is an 8:14.771.
Don't forget, everybody, that we are on Twitter, and you can indeed get in touch with us. I'm at Bradders3078. Get in touch with us at RSL_studio and use the hashtag N24HRSL.
Robin Frijns just heading out the pits in the number 15 Audi Sport Team Phoenix machine, based just round the corner at the start of the Dottinger Höhe, in fact, Team Phoenix. And Manthey also down there as well. And Robin Frijns getting himself a taste of GT3 machinery, with, of course, one weekend in the electric-powered Formula E Championship, and then back into a GT3 car and back into an electric car. Will be next weekend heading off to Jakarta for more Formula E action. Quite a varied campaign for those drivers that are driving in Formula E this year and still keep their toes in conventional motorsport, especially these long 24-hour races. Spoke to Nicky Katzberg earlier today. This is his second of 6 weekends on the bounce, driving different forms of motorsport, which will culminate in him debuting in the electric touring car championship as a Works Hyundai driver, taking over from Kevin Chacon. So Works BMW driver in GT3 and then Works Hyundai driver in electric touring cars.
Has he got a little race in France to contend with in a couple of weeks?
No, I think he's doing electric cars instead.
Ah, really?
I think so.
How rude.
But we have seen him as a Works Corvette driver, haven't we?
Yeah, very much.
At Le Mans 24 Hours.
Yes, busy pit lane here at the Nürburgring N24. 5 cars per garage, and another sense of recalibration. If you're a team, then you've got to get used to a very crowded garage, and you can't necessarily have the room to work on your car. There's a lot of compromise going on down there in the pit lanes, and it's not just about pit stops either. It's about the workings of the week of how you operate, setting the car up. There's quite an operation with cooperation from all of the teams present in your garage.
Plenty of gentlemen out in the pits and paddock area from Oxford Brookes University. Shout out to all of the guys who've still in the world of engineering and mechanicking. Unfortunately, I bailed after 1 semester. But Dan, great to speak with a fellow ex-karting teammate of mine, who's now chief mechanic at KCMG, explaining a bit more about their workings. They've chosen to work in the garage whereas obviously sharing with 5 cars, not all those cars can do that. So we do see some teams with a kind of makeshift garage out the back. You'd have to push the cars out the back of the garage, go into your awnings. There is also another little technical hitch that various championships find here. There is a rule about your awnings here at the Nürburgring 24 Hours, and they cannot be more than 3 years old, and they must conform to certain regulations. So those
size as well to restrict the
size
paddock space.
Yeah, and they must be. It's not just about paddock space. It's actually about safety and how well they're built and how modern they are and how they're attached. If they're freestanding, they are subject to different regulations to if they're attached to a truck. And so many teams turn up with their attachments on their trucks and are not allowed to erect them here.
Yeah, they're allowed. It's a freestanding awning, isn't it? It's a tent. But remember the diverse kind of field we have here. 4 guys in a picnic table and a toolbox to fully worked manufactured GT3 teams. So and again, that's one of the attractions of the event, isn't it? It's a wonderful event for that reason, the diverse field of cars and teams and drivers, etc.
We're back to full green flag racing, which means we should see some faster lap times being pumped in if they can get clear traffic. Let's quickly run down the class leaders with 20 minutes before the hour. And it is still the Rover Racing BMW M4 number 98 that is the fastest car out there. I don't think it was Katzberg who set that time. I've been saying that all through, but it was actually Edwards who set that time right at the start of the session in Q1 earlier today. KTM Crossbow GT2 is the fastest in SPX. True Racing's 116 car. The 160 KTM Crossbow GTX machine is the fastest in Cup X for Teichmann Racing. Krymer Racing still fastest in Cup 2. That's the 127992 Porsche. Dodge Viper is still the fastest in the alternative fuel category, the number 13 machine. Pro Sport still fastest in SP10. They've got Christopher Mies aboard that Aston Martin right this moment. And in SP8T, it's also an Aston Martin Vantage of Door Motorsport. FK Performance Motorsport fastest in Cup 3 in a Porsche 718 Cayman. And it is still the 830 Hyundai Motorsport Elantra that is fastest in the TCR class. Subaru fastest in SP3T. And Hoffa Racing's BMW M3 E46 is fastest in SP6, the number 200. Huber Motorsport's Porsche 911 991 car is fastest in SP7, that's the number 70 machine, with Adrenaline Motorsport leading quite a few categories further down our list. The Cup 5 is led by Adrenaline in the 871 machine. Adrenaline also lead the V6 category in a Cayman, that's the 396. They lead VT2 Hecker in the 330 BMW 330, and they also lead the V5 category in their Cayman 444. Other teams leading their categories, we've got more Porsches in SP4T. There's a team with 718 that doesn't actually have a team name. Team Manthol lead VT3, that's the 300. Schnitzlam lead the BMW M2 Racing Cup cars, and that is the 245. Toyota Gazoo Racing Team Thailand lead in SP3, the 119 Corolla Alatis, and then we do have another Hyundai leading the V2 front category, a Hyundai i30N for Hyundai Driving Experience, effectively another Works Hyundai team, 332. Finally, FK Performance in their BMW 325i lead the V4 category, that's the 324. So just on those Hyundais, we should mention there are 2 Works entered Hyundai Motorsport machines alongside the 2 Hyundai Works Motorsport machines that are running in the World Touring Car Cup, which is a support race here this weekend. There is also this Hyundai Driving Experience machine, which is effectively also a Works Hyundai run team. So huge amount of presence here for Hyundai, both in the World Touring Cars and in the 24-hour series. And the Hyundai Driving Experience is a big push from the Korean brand over the next couple of years, not just here but across the world, in different parts of the world, like we've seen from Porsche, from their experience centres, Hyundai with their N category of cars, both an i20. We'll see, we've got the Elantra, of course, and we'll see other electric-based machines getting their N versions, which I'm a bit jealous of, considering I already own a non-N Ioniq 5. I'd like an N one as soon as it comes out, please. But there is the ability now to take those cars around on racetracks of the world, including here at the Nordschleife.
And they're very serious with their driver lineups. Andy Burry with Heidhoff bumped into Andy Burry in the pit lane yesterday. We got a little word with him. Catch up with that on the RSL network. We've had a few tweets in. Don't forget, please feel free to ask us any questions and be part of the broadcast for the N24 weekend at RSL_studio, hashtag N24HRSL. Hello to Chris Humphreys. Chris, I know, is a marshal in the UK. Very busy weekend ahead of him. Rallycross at Linden Hill and Masters Historics at Brands Hatch, but he will be checking in during his breaks, he tells me. Well, don't miss your focus and lose your focus on the race. And another friend of the RSL network, Steve Tarrant, he's watching and enjoying the coverage. Never been to the N24. Well, we'd love to have you here, Steve. And a good spot from Alan Prosser. The Porsche that we saw earlier going onto the recovery truck looked like the front wheels were pointing in the wrong direction. And it's a good spot from Alan, because that possibly is the reason why we couldn't recover it by dragging it onto a flatbed. It had to be lifted on. So we had to get a special lifting truck to recover the Porsche. Hence that very long slow zone through the Whippleman section of track. Good spot, Alan. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it was clear that we needed to lift it onto a flatbed and not drag it. Also, because they need to turn it around, and the circuit itself not particularly wide at that point to get the car facing in the correct direction, let alone then start dragging it. But with such a slap to the wall and any kind of steering angle on that car, when it made contact with the Armco, would have certainly damaged the steering in some form.
Yeah, it's not surprising. It did hit hard.
I think we've established that we've got 135 cars on the entry list. The provisional entry list that I saw, which I mentioned in qualifying one, said 138, but absolutely no evidence that we're seeing 138 cars out there. If we were, you would have expected at least the three that were missing from Q1 to have set something in this second session, but they don't seem to have appeared. So I'm going to go with 135 cars, which is still a bit down on what we've seen at peak. You can have up to 170 cars, and we did see pre-COVID 161 in the 2019
We've got 96 of those cars out on the track at the moment, running. 39 of those 135 cars in the pits. And this session, we're about 12 and a half minutes away from the final hour of this 3-hour qualifying and practice session. I say that because the SP9 class, this is effectively a practice session. They'll be qualifying to form their grid tomorrow night. The rest of the classes, they're forming the grid as we go through these practice sessions. So it's qualifying for them. And quite basically, to explain that, if you put in a faster time tomorrow, that will stand you for your grid position. If your faster time came yesterday and you failed to match that all day today and into tomorrow, then it'll be yesterday's quickest time that will stand you for your grid. So a lot of track time. There's a lot of driver rotation going on, and like I say, Ben, recalibrating the mind. There might feel like a lot of track time-wise, hours on the clock, but there isn't. Not with an 8-minute plus lap time. Some of the lower classes, of course, they're into 9 minutes towards 10 minutes. And that just eats the clock up when you think about it. You know, by the time the driver's done his out lap, he's probably on for 12, 13, 14 minutes.
The clattering that you could hear behind me with Matt Campbell taking to the gravel to get around a slower BMW, which seemingly was opening the door as they came onto the bottom part of the Grand Prix loop. But as soon as they exited the corner, the BMW started to fade to the left, ended up forcing Matt Campbell off the circuit. And so Campbell keeping the car facing the right direction at the start of the lap, but did have to take to the gravel trap as we check in at Phoenix. And bit strange for me to see Timo Schneider down there at Phoenix, because the last time I bumped into him was a very dusty and dirty Riga rallycross track. He's been spending quite a lot of time doing rallycross over the last couple of years as Timo Schneider. And so obviously hugely experienced DTM racer and GT3 racer, and still very much a gun for hire. But as I say, for me, probably the last time he was here actually would have been in a rallycross car when they held the final round of the World Rallycross Championship here at the Nürburgring in the end of November in the snow. The track is fully green. We did have a brief period of yellow flag, someone with a little error but getting themselves back going again. Interestingly, going back to the TCR category, the car that is on our provisional pole there, which is the Elantra, which won last year in its effectively debut, really, because the Elantra was a new model and shape for Hyundai in the TCR category last year at the start of the year. That's still on the pole position. No TCR car has managed to go faster than it, despite the fact that that particular vehicle had some kind of suspension or steering issue on the very start of our session. Ended up coming off the road through the S's before we got onto the Nordschleife, and I don't think, well, only recently has gone back out onto circuit, so has done many less laps than its rivals, but still sits there in 56th overall. And the nearest TCR car is now actually just behind it, just 0.7 of a second behind. A car that we didn't see too much of in the first session, the Max Cruz Racing Audi RS3 LMS, which is the 811 machine. Now 0.7 of a second between the two of them, which is pretty close in touring car terms, especially when you looked at the World Touring Car practice sessions that we've seen, and there was something like 6-7 seconds between the top 10 because of the lap, and so long it was. As the briefings continue down in pit lane between legends. Incredible to see the driver lineup that always appears here at the Nürburgring Nordschleife, and Falcon Horse having a bit of a debrief with Jörg Müller, who is in both of those cars. We've got Andy Susek in conversation down there as well, looking much more fresh-faced than Jörg. I think Jörg's been worked.
Yeah, he's just got out of the car, hasn't he? You can see the lines from his under the helmet balaclava. Talking of legends, I want to congratulate the Hofer team for bringing their BMW E46 GTR out, and welcome back the Kroll family, and with his daughter Chantel Prince and Alex Prince, of course Chantel, the daughter of Michael Kroll, and they've brought their car out. Now that they are the only car running in SP6, but I don't mind that because it's the BMW E46 GTR. They're currently in 72nd place overall, and I'm pretty sure that they're just very happy being here.
The engine notes really are absolutely incredible around the back end of this Nürburgring Nordschleife circuit. The amount of full throttle around the circuit is quite incredible. The average lap time for our lap record is something like 187 kilometers an hour is the average speed, sorry, I should say. So incredible pace that they have around this circuit, and so much of the climb back up the hill after you get to Adenau is full throttle, but kinks. And so obviously when there is traffic, the cars are going from left to right to left to right. Difficult to find space to overtake when you are a faster car, but with a clear track ahead of you, absolutely incredible. We will see that in the top qualifying session, where we remove the slower cars and we just see the GT3 cars go for the ultimate pace. Nice little bit of format of racing, just to be able to say this is what the GT3 cars can do when there is no traffic in front of them. A little bit of traffic for Ricardo Feller aboard the number 5 Audi R8 LMS, which is now a couple of years old, the Audi, and Feller is part of the Scherer Sport Team Phoenix, sharing with Vincent Koub, Frank Stippler in there, and Kelvin van der Linde.
Yeah, got to be a contender, hasn't it? Is it Audi's turn this year?
No, I think you said that to me earlier, and I worked out the Mercedes haven't won since 2016.
Yeah, could be a Mercedes. I'm not saying that anything's contrived here. I'm just saying that we seem to ebb and flow, don't we? I know we've still got balance of performance to contend with before we get the qualifying tomorrow, and then that can change again into Saturday's race start. So, you know, it goes without saying though, Ben, that the number 5 Shearer Sport Team Phoenix, the bit at the end, Team Phoenix, they know their way around here. In fact, they're based here, aren't they? They're based just over the road. So this is their back door, this is their back garden that they know every single inch of, and they are a serious contender. But like any 24-hour race, and perhaps even more so around the Nordschleife, anything can happen, and usually does here at the Nürburgring.
Yeah, we've seen the last 2 years shortened races due to various inclement weather conditions. So you have to go back 3 years before we got a race that ran to the full 24 hours. And I think even then, a couple of years ago, we had a red flag. 2018 we had a red flag for 2 hours. So 19 ran to its full 24 hours with 157 laps completed. 158 back in 2017 when we saw primarily dry conditions. But we only had 59 laps last year due to the amount of disruption, and 85 the year before. We are expecting quite cold temperatures on Saturday night into Sunday morning. We aren't expecting too much in terms of weather. There might be the odd shower here and there, but it's not a big band of rain hitting us. If we do get something, it'll be very localized. So hopefully for the campsites, pretty dry out there. Where we've parked today is pretty dry.
Yeah, it is. It's very, very dry, and it's quite unusual. My worry is I've seen a forecast of 3 degrees on Sunday morning. But I've also seen a forecast of 7 degrees. It is quite warm though. We've had highs of over 20 degrees, 24 degrees today. But then we've got that cooling breeze. I think if we've got a chance of fog. If it drops to 3 degrees, that could create a fog.
Depends on the moisture that's in the forests, and if it has been this warm and this dry for a period of time, there might not be that moisture to create the fog.
We're in the Eiffel forests.
I know.
There's lots of moisture everywhere. Yeah, that's my worry. We've seen that many times here at the Nürburgring, and it's roughly around about this time of year that we do get early morning fog created, and it's just, you know, hopefully the wind will pick up. It's quite windy. I can see the flags flying in the paddock, so it's not a still night, and there's certainly a bit of a chill breeze. That's, you know, for a race car, they love that. They love the cooler air. They love the cooler track temperature that we're seeing now. Where the sun is totally down. We have got full dark. And it certainly is full dark out there on the circuit.
And we're seeing totally green flag running for the moment, just the odd yellow flag flicking up and then disappearing again. But we aren't seeing massive green sectors around the lap. Everyone seems to have now settled into the rhythm and the program that they've required of themselves. There is still, when we jump on board with various cars, they are still pushing and they are still exploring the limits of the track, but it certainly doesn't feel as though we're going to get massive improvements. And as we've mentioned before, it doesn't matter for the SP9s because they'll get their top qualifying tomorrow afternoon to actually set the grid for the top class. It does matter for everybody else.
Another contender, of course, the 22. It's the Audi Sport Team Car Collection. Car Collection, if you're a follower of the 24H series, Car Collection, a stalwart of that series. They've come out in full force here. Christopher Haase, Nico Muller, Patrick Niederhauser, and René Rast. Need I say more than that man, René Rast? He's familiar with the Audi brand, and you cannot discount the Car Collection Car 22 with that driver lineup, can you? Again, it's another Audi though, Ben. I seem to be erring towards Audi here, don't I?
36 Porsches across the various different categories, but we do have quite a lot of Caymans in the lower categories. I need to do a tot-up of how many Mercedes versus Porsches versus Audis versus BMWs that we have in that top class. And wouldn't it be cool to see something like a Ferrari or a Lamborghini getting right into the mix of things, and especially with the Conrad run machine? That's quite possible. We're coming towards the end of the hour. We're going to have one last hour of qualifying. It's not a practice session, it is a qualifying session tonight, and then we'll have a bit more qualifying action tomorrow, and finishing off the day with the actual proper top qualifying, it's called, for initially the SP9 runners and then the top 19, which is 15 of the cars that have pre-qualified plus the fastest 4 from that qualifying 1 session. So that's definitely something to tune into on Friday nights. And if you are around the circuit, you are tuning in, then that is really when the parties are going to properly kick off.
The 23, it's the other car collection car. This one, the number 23, the Lion Speed car collection car. That's had its fastest lap cancelled for a speed limit violation. And also, look, staying in the penalty box with Joe Bradley. That might even be a thing. 102, car 102. I'm just scooting down. It's the Falcon BMW. It's that's again speeding in a code 60. So speed limit variations there, violations I should say, in the pit lane and out on the track during code 60. So start from the end of the starting group is the penalty for that Falcon Horse car 102.
Which effectively means start at the back, doesn't it? In their particular category.
Yes,
that's quite a heavy penalty, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Save the best to last is what I'd be telling you boys.
Yeah, the start of the race will be split into 2 groups at the start of our race, but quite quickly we will see those SP9 category cars catch the slower classes further back. We do have another car being hit with that same penalty, non-respect of code 60, and therefore start at the back of the group. It's the 140 machine, which is quite far down my timing order anyway. Just trying to see if I can see where it exactly is.
It is the Sankt Vith Toyota GT86 Cup car. Good evening, Ben.
Good evening.
I think that's quite a draconian penalty, particularly for the Falcon Horse, because it doesn't matter what they do from now, Ben.
No.
In terms of their qualifying or the top qualifying, the 100 is still under investigation as well, and that has not yet been resolved. So if they get the same thing, that could be 2 Falcon Horse cars at the back of the leading group. That's huge for them in the opening stanza of this race, Ben.
That'll be a huge amount of work for the 102 machine to get through the slower cars ahead of them, because their starting group won't be just SP9s, I would imagine. There'll be some slightly slower machines in the first group before we then split to the slower cars. And as you say, that Toyota GT86 of pit lane also being penalised, although they are 118th at the moment, so they are quite a way down.
Thank you, Ben and Joe Bradley. Nick Damon in a moment or two. Let's take a look at the class leaders. Remember, these are all potential pole sitters, bar SPX, SP9 and SP8. In V4, in 121st position is the Huber FK Performance, Huber-driven FK Performance 325i. In V5, it's Adrenaline Motorsports 444. Porsche Cayman 981. The 332 is the front-wheel drive Hyundai Driving Experience i30N. That is holding sway in 111th position. SP3 has the remaining Altis. That's the 119 car. The 120, remember, had its issues earlier on when the door was run into by the CP Racing AMG, the number 21 car, as that is this weekend. And in VT2 rear drive, it is Adrenaline Motorsports 330 G20 BMW, and that is number 330, and it's in 102nd position. Schnitzler Racing's 240 Racing Cup leads their class, the 245. Adrenaline Motorsport have a couple of more class leaders, one of which on provisional pole is a Cayman S 981 Variety, and that's the V6 leader in 96th position for the 396. Team Mathol Porsche 718 Cayman S. That's the 300 car in 95th position. That's the VT3 leader. A privately entered SP4T Porsche, the 718 GTS, with the number 718 in 91st position. They're class leaders, therefore provisional poles at this right now. The M2 Racing Cup class is the Cup 5 category. That's the number 871 Adrenaline. There you go. Told you there was another one. Huber Motorsport have the 991 Carrera Cup class leader. That's SP7, the number 70 in 79th position. Hoffa Racing's E46 GT GTR in a class of its own, the number 200 in 72nd position. The STI Subaru, WRX and SP3T just going back out again. The 114 is in 59th position, leading its class. And still, the damaged Hyundai Elantra TCR, the 830 car that had that collapsed front suspension earlier on when it was going out in this session. Thanks to James Broomhead for confirming that for us earlier on. Manuel Lauk, who had put the fastest time in the first session, didn't get to even set a time in the second session. That car's still being worked on down the pit lane. FK Performance Motorsport with another 718 Cayman. This is in Cup 3. That's the 263 car. They lead their class in 52nd position. Doha Motorsport has an Aston Martin Vantage, leading SP8T. SP10, Chris Meeks for the Pro Sport, number 82. Aston leads their class in 49th. The AT class is the Dodge Viper, the massive 8.4 litre from a GT3 car, running on the alternative fuels, in 44th position for the number 13. K Kramer Racing, Porsche 911 GT3 Cup. That is the 992 Porsche Carrera Cup car, in the lead of its class in a very respectable 34th position. The Cup X lead, there's only 3 cars in the class, 2 crossbows, and they are first and second, and it's the 160 that leads in 33rd position. The 706 has Frank Mayer, that's the Glickenhaus car, and that is sitting down in 20... No, hang on, that can't be right. That's sitting down below... Oh, that's SPX, my apologies, which is the next class I'm going to. The SPX is the 116 Crossbow GT2, where there's only the 3 cars in class, the third one being the Glickenhaus. They're 11th, the Glickenhaus down in 26th at the moment after a troubled first couple of days when the car was away from the track for most of yesterday after scrutineering. Top of the shop still that BMW number 98 and Kelvin now, which of the Van der Lindes is out in that at the moment. I've defaulted to Kelvin van der Linde, and it's Sheldon. Of course it is, because there was 2 to choose from. The time set by Nicky Katzberg earlier on today on the 6th lap out of the pits. Nick Damon joins me for the last hour of this evening in full darkness. Last time around, an improvement for Christopher Haase, the man who is named as the Rabbit. Haase is Rabbit, and he's got his night vision on here. 17.879 last time around for the car collection number 22.
Yeah, finally got a bit of clean running, haven't we? So with the track open, if you can get a run, and your brain is tuned into running in the full dark, there's a chance to get to around the times that we were seeing earlier in the day. We're still looking at the fastest time of 8:14.7. That was set many hours ago in the bright day. None of the golden hour opportunities really came because that long code 60 with the rescue of the errant Porsche, who was nipped off slightly by the BMW. There was kind of a 6, 1.5 dozen the others, those 2 cars working together. But now it really is a case of just getting those night laps logged in. It's 2 for every single driver. Not sure really how much. So it's a really interesting situation this year because as we said, every single time the cars hit the track, they're actually qualifying.
Yeah.
There's no setup.
It's like MotoGP, isn't it?
Yeah.
Every session counts. I really like it, I have to say.
Well, you kind of think, because they had 2 qualifying races, no 2 qualifying races where you did the setup. Now you should be ready to go. Small adjustments to the air pressure, the air temperature, and any minor change in the track. And obviously, as it's a dry track, there's less of that. But then you just go, and then there's this possibly needlessly complicated formula for the qualifying, but it does, of course, do the thing you want most of all, which produce a very television-friendly crescendo early evening tomorrow.
Yeah, very good.
But yeah, if you think about it, they're doing all this, but a large amount of it's all going to get wiped off straight away again.
For the top categories, yes, but at the end of the 3rd qualifying tomorrow, the rest of the grid is set. That's the key thing. At RSL_studio, hashtag N24HRSL if you want to get in touch with us. Hello to Robert Jewell, who's enjoying the coverage. Always been a fan of the circuit, he says, since he works with the DTM cars with Zach Speed and did the 24 with Aston when we won the class with the Vantage V12, which was a true factory team. We even got overtime pay for Saturday and Sunday.
I am assuming that all the classes will line up in class order regardless of time, or do they line up in time order regardless of class? Because I haven't been here before, so I'm bowing over to your better knowledge.
The top grid will be the top of the grid, the top group.
All the SP3s,
all SP9s,
then the
yeah.
SPXs, and then they go down class by class.
Yes, which does cause issues, of course, because you have got some cars that are quicker in the second group, but the gap. It just means all the groups spread out. That's the idea. Let's have a listen to what Chris Haas is saying, just in the background here.
The only thing, the mid to exit understeer, it got more, it drops faster.
Audi driver.
In the rear, the traction is dropping quick.
So, tyre wear. He's talking tyre wear there. Understeer coming in pretty quickly, and the grip at the back going away pretty quickly.
It's curious, because you would think that would end up balancing it, and it would just be a bit slidey, but because you obviously
I haven't got...
losing rear grip is going to give you oversteer.
Yeah.
Leader a tiny bit more than the front tire pressure. Just go over the grading.
A little bit more on the front tyre pressures to avoid the graining, and maybe a little bit more on the back.
Where are you? Think of the back.
Possibly. What I haven't got is detailed information from the track in terms of track temperatures, Nick, and how that's changing.
No, I haven't got track temperatures. I've got ambient temperatures, and they are actually holding up relatively well. It's still 14 degrees outside. To give you an idea, 14 degrees is the top temperature for Saturday.
Yeah.
So we're on a gradual descent of temperature during the Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
It hasn't been very warm today, but there's been quite a lot of sunshine.
It's very warm in the sun.
Yes.
Not in the sun, not warm.
There's a northerly wind,
Yeah,
isn't
we're lucky
there?
enough to get a wander about, which I've never going to get doing, and you were sitting there and you had no idea how many layers to take with you, because the difference between being in the sun and not in the sun was about 2 layers of clothing. And of course that's exactly the same for the tyres. The difference of being on a warm sunny bit of track to not being in sunny is probably 2 pounds of pressure.
Here's another penalty in this qualifying session which will affect a starting position. Remember, we've got the Sanktvith 140 that has been dropped to the end of its starting group. We have had the 102 Falcon horse BMW starting from the back of its starting group because of non-respect of code 60, and now the 44 Falcon Motorsport car. This is the Klaus Bachler, Alessio Piccarello, Patrick Pilia and Martin Raginger car. 5 grid position drop. So even if they get the fastest time in the final top qualifying, they will still only start on the 3rd row.
Yeah, in a 24-hour race, it's not a major penalty, but it's not how you want to start going into the qualifying. So it's probably nothing like as severe as the guys who put the back of their group. That just means they are at the back of their qualifying section, which kind of makes me think that does mean they're going to line up in class order.
Partially.
Yeah.
Because they split the top. They'll normally have about, how many cars have we got? 138, 135. It'll be something like 40, maybe 45. And then the rest of it split into 2 groups where it makes sense. It's like how you split up a virtual race in splits.
Yeah.
It's not every split is always full and doesn't always have every class in. So that's what they'll be looking at for that, just in case some of the faster cars had problems in qualifying. They don't want somebody in a GT3 car starting 93rd.
No, I mean, it was interesting, but when we got going, both earlier this afternoon and this evening, there was so many instances in the first few laps.
Yes.
And that was because we had a complete mismatch of classes.
Correct.
A huge speed difference where he was braining up the speed. But of course, by separating them out for the actual race, you should have the best chance of a clean start.
For all of the first lap and a bit. Changing SPX, where Frank Mayer, we've been reporting about the problems that the Glickenhaus has had, and Frank Mayer, just before he came back into the pits a moment or two ago, did an 8:21.8. Best lap is an 8:14, by the way, so 7 seconds off the best lap at the moment, but he has gone up a position in class and climbed 5 positions in the overall. So he's gone ahead of the True Racing KTM Crossbow. That's the number 117 car, which is still out on the track at the moment. Julian Andlauer's Porsche, the top sport car that you can hear behind me, that glorious flat 6. And it's that's the brothers Stuck, Ferdi and Johannes, along with Marcus Pautala and Christian Menzel. Meantime, Andlauer just coming towards the end of the lap, and if I look to the right, we'll see the headlights. Here he comes now. He's behind one of the very easily recognisable KTMs because they've got that centrally mounted, very low down extra headlight for the nighttime running.
Well, we're quite used to seeing the KTMs, of course, on the here on the RSL network, of course, because we see an awful lot, and we've seen these very cars, these very drivers in Creventic, and of course, even sporting MotoGP race winners in them.
Oh yes, yes, absolutely. Not by class order, by time, I'm being told, by Pentanix.
That's interesting. So how can you put the end of a group?
Well, wherever you qualify, whichever group you qualify in, you'll go to the back of it.
Group 1,
You'd go to the back of Group 1.
That's quite severe, isn't it?
But if you're just at the start of Group 2, you'll get pushed back 40 cars.
Wow, that is quite severe.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Pentanix. I thought some of the GT3 cars were guaranteed a Group 1 start, the SP9s.
Perhaps that is still the case.
There is also another rule, by the way, that everybody's got to get 2 laps in qualifying, and the clerk of the course, the stewards here, reserve the right to ban drivers from nighttime driving if they don't believe they've been up to speed in the dark. So these laps right now, in the last hour and a half, 2 hours, are really, really important, and they are being looked at. Sheldon von der Linde in the 98 Rover Racing BMW getting a little bit of a tangle with
a blue slew.
That was, I think that was one of the BMW 325i's as he was coming down to that looked like the right-hander at the bottom of the climb up to, well, you've got the tracker up to the carousel. So that would have been...
What number is he? 95.
Sheldon van der Linde for Rover Racing, and he is in the 98 BMW. I'll let you find out where that was.
It's too late then.
Meantime, Georgi Greisman behind the wheel of the KTM Crossbow GTX. That's the 3rd placed car in GTX. Is that the pole sitter? Oh, it would help if I used the right mouse. I've upped my computer game here, and I may not have done the right thing. So that is 33rd position. That is the Cup X pole sitter moment for the Typhoon Racing car. 8:33 that car's done.
He tripped over the Hyundai Driving Experience 332 car.
Did he?
Yes. They're a little bit further around, actually. They were just coming into, just before dotting a hole. So actually, I think that was probably just in that right hand before the Swallows Bend. So,
okay. Hello to Poppy Gloria. I'm joining for the first time from Belgium. Hello, Poppy. Good evening. At RSL_studio. Are there any women racing this weekend? Well, Pippa Mann's here in a car. Laura Kreiheimer is in a KTM. Chantal Prince, as is now. Yeah. Laura Kreiheimer is a development driver for KTM. Chantal Kroll, as was, Knee Kroll, now Prince, driving.
Jasmine Preissig.
Jasmine Preissig. Well. I think one of Volker Streichek's daughters driving as well in one of the Opel OPCs.
My guess is probably about a dozen. We haven't got all the names in front of us at the moment.
So, Poppy, yes, plenty of females. The Nordschleife is an equal opportunity challenge.
Yeah, it'll bite anybody.
It will bite anybody.
Care.
The track, the stopwatch in the car doesn't care. The Gitti Tyres 220, of course, as I am just reminded, is an all-female team as well, which is worthy of note. This is the GT tyre by WS Racing, and they're running plenty of cars. and that is the M4 GT4 in the SP8T category, and that's Carrie Schreiner, Celia Martin, Fabien Volvend, and Pip Le Mans. That's the car that Pip Le Mans in.
So a couple of well-known races there. Fabien Volvend, of course,
W Series, yeah.
Man, who lives in Indianapolis but isn't doing the 500 this year.
Oddly, because normally Pippa finds a way to...
Well, she was involved in that scramble for the third berth.
Yeah.
So just picked by Stefan Wilson in the end.
Right, Volta stride checks in the Ravenol. No, well, that's not here. The Opel Manta. So I'm now going to feel I have to look through and find out where the rest are. If you can help, please shout up. There were all female teams, including the mechanics last year, and I think they're back this year as well. So, Poppy, thank you for joining us from Belgium. All free, all weekends, sound and vision. Player.radiolemans.co, RS1. And following us tonight, of course, we will have the Simcast on RS1. The guys with just push back a little bit. Excuse me, we will have on the grid after us Richard Creel and our Antipodean friends on RS1 around the world, and wherever you're joining from around the world in sound or vision. If you go at the bottom of our homepage at radio-show.co.uk, you will see all the live broadcast times for the TV and for the radio. We are linked inseparably this year, and we've got the BMW Legends, the M2 Cup race, and we'll be covering the Falcon Drift Show as well for you. Hopefully you can join us for that. Little bit of work going on down in the Tom Ferrier
lights
pits. Yeah,
maybe aiming them slightly different
for the Aston.
They've gone round and gone, yeah, that one's not pointing where it needs to. Maybe as many lumens as possible for this track.
As many lumens, did you say?
Lumens.
All right, sorry. Thought we were into children's television. Oh, big off by Sheldon von der Linde in the number 98 BMW. Just coming into the second carousel. So coming off the end of Flansgarden, over that little bridge there. We've all done that on the sims.
You get sucked out of there because you think you can take a couple of extra miles an hour and the car just drifts out a little wider. It won't damage the car too much. You may well have ruined the wrap. Scraped it down the side.
Not sure. I don't think he got to the arm core, which is almost never happens when you're doing it on the sim. Clocked up a few laps around here on manufacturer days, never raced here. Peter Snowden is our race expert round here. Started racing here, I think he said 20 years ago, and raced here for 10 years in a variety of ridiculous machinery back in those days. Kevin Estra is aboard the #1 defending race winners, Montai Racing. I suppose you call them race champions. It is a championship of one race, this, of course. The Grello #1 car. Not yet qualified into the top 20 pole shootout. Now he's passing very slowly indeed on the Grand Prix circuit.
Dunlop curve, the bottom of the circuit, isn't it?
Need to go through a few more whoopsies. The KTM True Racing, the two Stucks, Marcus Paltal and Christian Menzel, cancellation of fastest lap, non-respect of speed limit. Blowing through code 60, the number 125 is also in trouble. That's the Huber Motorsport, Thomas Kalina, Hans Wehrmann, Stefan Aust and Christian Bollrath in their Carrera Cup 992 car. They'll have to start from the end of their group, and that is for speeding through code 60 effectively. Kevin Estra has decided to bail out of that. No point in going onto the Nordschleife when he was slowed down on the...
Yeah, there's a lot of problems going in and out of the Dunlop curves at the moment, so we've got a lot of...
So who's down there then?
Down there. Nobody appears to be officially stopped looking at the tracker, but they are going into a code 60 just coming out of the previous corner, which I think is the MGK code, isn't it?
Post 33.
And then
if that helps you.
I've got it's basically it's odd. Then the approach to Michael Schumacher S is also all yellowed up. And there's actually a purple again at the exit. It doesn't seem there's no car indicated on the tracker.
We had some issue earlier on with the barrier repair, and we lost 18 minutes of the first 90-minute session when we had a Porsche Cup car in the wall there. And I wonder if that's reared its ugly head again. It was around about the same area. It might have been a tiny bit further round. So no point in wasting fuel and time for Manthey. It's not as if they need to find out all that much about this circuit.
They might know which way it goes.
Do you think?
Yeah, possibly.
And Kevin Estre, well, you know.
Well, they're going to employ these youngsters. Yep.
They are literally close enough, and we have seen this happen in years gone by, where at the end of the day or the next morning, tomorrow we've got a relatively late start, not starting till the afternoon, they'll take the cars back to Neuspath, which is just up towards where we got our creds, and you turn off to the right before that, alongside the Dottinger Hurt. And they take the cars back to the workshop, and then the next day they put a couple of yellow lights on and drive something in front of it with its hazard flashes on and drive the car back to the track. It's literally that close.
Can't believe it's got road tax, but there we go.
Well, I think that's fine.
Cut a bit of slack, I'm sure.
Well, it could actually just drive out of the. If I'm remembering rightly, I think they could drive out of the workshop, turn left again onto Gottlieb-Daimlerstrasse, come straight down, turn right at the bottom, and come on at the tourist lap entrance halfway down the Dottinger Hurt, and then they'd be back on the track straight away. Hello to Sarah Rigby. In Crewe, home of Bentley, but supporting the Aston Martins, of course, this weekend. We had David King, formerly of Aston Martin, listening in this afternoon. I'm sure he's tuned in as well tonight. Missing you, David. And Sarah, good to know you're tuned in as well. Looking particularly at the very good position from TF Sport. Rennie Rast just improved last time around for Audi Sport Team Car Collection. Down to an 817. That puts that car in 4th position. And we'll give you a quick rundown before the end of tonight for the running orders in the classes. Now this is a significant note coming through. The pole-sitting Hyundai, however you say it, depending on which part of the world you are. The Elantra TCR, the number 830, has had its fastest lap cancelled. Now, their fastest lap up until it's just gone out again was set in the previous session.
Right.
So does that mean it just loses the fastest lap of this session, or its overall fastest lap?
No, because this is one
yes.
qualifying session in several parts.
Well, they're still showing is the class leader at the moment. 220 is under investigation, and
80 as well.
They're coming in quicker than I can look them. So look them up. 220 is the another one. In fact, that's the all-female crewed BMW M4 GT4. Oh dear, we've cursed them by talking about them.
For you, John.
Yes.
It's the Pro Sport Racing GmbH Aston Martin Vantage GT4 of Maxime Dumaré, Guillaume Dumaré, Jean Dumaré, and Simon Barken. The Belgian team, basically, which also regular that Belgian Pro Sport car rugby turns up on the Coventry circuit as well.
I think that was well up in class as well. So if
nothing's happened to the 80 yet, it's just to Cresty go the clerk of the course meetings. I think there's nothing going to happen to it.
Is that the Dumaré's, Jean Glorieux and Balkan, Simon Balkan? Yeah, they are sitting in 3rd position in SP3T, 69th overall. Paul Waterhouse, don't the class position and flashing lights on the screen distract the driver at night? They are very tied up to the screen. Sometimes on one or two of the onboard camera shots, if you're lucky enough to be able to see them, you'll see a little blue flash. That's the fastest cars get awarded the blue flashing light in the top right-hand corner of the windscreen, and it's to fire off the guilt of the drivers that they're coming up on. You see a blue light behind you, and if you're anything like Nick and I, immediately, even if you've done nothing wrong, you immediately get that iron filings taste in your mouth.
Slow down.
And immediately you lift off.
Yes. I think certainly the number boards wouldn't distract the driver in the car which has the board. That's the way the eyes are looking, nowhere near that top right side. And I don't think the flashing would even sharp to a car when it's being aggressively attacked by LED headlights the whole time from behind as well. So I think there's many other things with flashing. But obviously, the more information, the more chance you have to see the cars, because the closing speeds are absolutely insane between the fastest and slowest, especially around such a tight circuit. This is an example. Ray Rouse was trying to sweep past one of these slower TCRs, and there was a TCR Golf wanting to go first, and probably lost 3 seconds or 2.5 seconds just in one corner there. And that's going to happen the whole way through.
I'm going to throw myself open to collective wisdom here.
Okay.
I've been doing... We covered the qualifying races, of course, the 2 3-hour qualifying races, slightly different. And I thought actually really successful change of format to make it a real festival weekend for the qualifying event rather than just one 6-hour race. And the qualifying record, which I know is not a lap record, but the fastest qualifying lap on the N24 configuration, because of course NLS doesn't use the same configuration. Axel Jeffries has got the NLS qualifying record from earlier on this year, but on the version of the track that we're using this weekend, with all the way down to the bottom of the hill on the Grand Prix circuit. On the first top qualifying, Conor De Filippi did an 8:08.421. And that was the fastest. On the second top qualifying session, that was broken by, I think, a couple of tenths. But for some reason, I can't find the results of the second top qualifying session. It was, in fact, a top qualifying session that was... which was taken part in by every car that raced on the Sunday. So everybody got a chance of 2 flying laps, pretty clear flying laps. So if anybody can find out what that time was, I've got a feeling it was a couple of tenths quicker than Connor's, the 8:08.421. If I'm wrong, I'll put my hands up. But if anybody can fire me that in from the second single car qualifying session over the quali weekend, please do, because I've exhausted places to look for it now.
So even though our fastest so far is an 8:14.7, you're saying that tomorrow, with the fair weather, we're looking at what, 8:06, 8:07 for pole?
If we got an 8:06 or an 8:07, that would be a lap record. But I think we'll be down. I think we'll be down if it's decent weather. We'll be down under 8:10 for a lap. There are some very, very fast drivers here this weekend who know their stuff and who are will be well wound up for that. Don't forget, after that third session tomorrow, and one of them is René Rast too. He's out on the circuit at the moment in the 22 car collection machine, which isn't that one of the cars that's been pinged for something?
I think that one's all right.
All right, okay. Oh yeah, okay. We've also got the number 8. The number 1 is under investigation, as is CP Racing. So Manthey and CP Racing now under.
CP aren't the 85 here.
Oh no, of course they're not. They're the 21. Sorry.
No, don't worry.
No, I'm there. Don't worry, I've got it. It is the Black Falcon Team Techstar Cayman. Marco Müller, Carsten Palaf, Tobias Fahl, and Mata Minen.
Obviously, as you said, between now and fast main qualifying, there's going to be a bit of bopping. And if you actually just look at the bare facts and timing sheets, you'd probably say that getting a bit of speed is going to be the Audis, as the fastest Audi is in 11th and about 5 seconds off. And he goes BMW, Mercedes, BMW. So with the new M4 GT3, it was a big push by BMW this year with the new car. But they kind of rather accidentally got too many top spots. But of course, it's not. I realise, obviously, of course, the race organiser access to significantly more information than just the fastest lap to make that measure. But the BMW did look quick down the straight. Right?
They were mighty quick down the straight in the qualifying race a couple of weeks ago, and they make a big hole in the air as well, so anybody in behind them gets a chance to sit in behind them. What they can't seem to do is to rattle past them all that easily. Rast's had a interrupted lap, so he's not setting any personal bests or car bests. He's coming through to the end of the lap now through the Kleiner Carousel in what is a very, very dark section of the circuit, and coming through the Gallows Hill corners and on to the Dottinger Hurt. A speck of red light ahead of him is the next car in line.
18 seconds lost on his lap already.
Really?
To the fastest. I mean, we did see enough problems getting past that Volkswagen, and we haven't seen the entire laps. So there may well be some sort of code 60 or at least some slow zone out the back as well. They arrive and disappear with regular speed and consistency. You'll find it zoomed in, yep, there's a bit of slow down area, and then it will disappear again 5 minutes later. Not all the major instances we've seen.
There we go. Thank you to Josh Barrett and to Maurice GT Ace. It was, they have found it. It was Augusto Farfus, an 8:08.421. I knew it was very tight. I didn't realise it was that. I didn't remember, should I say, that it was that tight. 8:08.421. I thought that was the Filippi lap. Okay, maybe that is misrepresented on the website that I was looking it up then. So 8:08.421 then is the qualifying record. So let's keep an eye out for that tomorrow. Not being the run, I think, that Glickenhaus would have liked up until now. Thomas Mitch has just brought the car back into the pits. I've seen Frank Meyer and Richard Westbrook out in the car. Haven't seen Felipe Fernandez-Leza behind the wheel yet. It's in a slight state of undress with the bodywork off at the front. They had not the best preparation, to be honest, at the qualifying weekends, with what they thought was an electronic issue on the gearbox. They changed steering wheels and all kinds of things. Then they had to have a look at the gearbox itself, because that didn't help it. And then they had a steering issue. So they didn't get the running they wanted.
It's a factory that has its attention in many ways placed somewhere else, isn't it? Though?
Well, Le Mans, yes, absolutely.
And the WEC, but that was regular at the Nürburgring 24. Yeah, I don't think they thought they would be sitting here behind a couple of KTMs at this point in their class.
I think they've passed one of the KTMs, so they're now sitting in second.
Behind Stuck, and they're behind.
So Stucky's gone faster then.
Yeah.
Because so it is the True Racing KTM GT2 across sport in the 116 that's in 11th. Second in, no, they are second. Thomas Munch is second in SPX, and Stucky is now down in third in 24th position.
No, I got this must be an old system. I got Mayo down in 27th.
Refresh.
Refresh.
So it's Nick Damon and John Hindhaugh taking you through the final 22 minutes. I'll give you another opportunity to listen to us go through all of the classes in a little while, so that you can find out exactly where your favourites are. If you're listening for a particular class. Provisional pole sitters, of course, they are for everything other than the top one.
So a lot of activity in the pits now. So a few of the teams are kind of winding down, but there's still people going out and getting those last couple of laps in the last 25 minutes. Look to my left and look into the lane, and quite a few cars still on the apron as they just look at the final fettling. And also one of the things that a lot of teams are doing is actually just making sure the lights are pointing in the right direction, because this is their chance around the dark. The qualifying races both, of course, during the day. And of course, many of them are very, very experienced Nürburgring runners, but even so, you need to be able to see where you're going even more so in pitch black areas of the track. I mean, it's interesting when you get to look at the onboard shots about how much actually, what do they call it? Light pollution, don't they? They call it when you try to do astronomy. This light pollution from the campsites is obviously actually a major boon to the drivers rather than the problem. Literally, it's not as white light, there's this tremendous amount of LED colour or flare of purple and reds and blues, and of course the campfires and everything else. As this crazy crowd finally back after a couple of years, and they couldn't come in, of course, and enjoying it. And it's a very interesting atmosphere out there when you're walking around. It's surprising the family. I've never seen so many dogs around the racetrack. I've never seen so many families, possibly outside the sort of British Grand Prix, which is very family, but so many dogs. They're a marvellous time dog identifying.
What breeds did you think were the most profligate?
Well, in fairness, it was a good wide mix. I did see a fantastically stubborn wire-head Dachshund. That was great. That just to the 4-paw brakes, literally had brakes seized on. The owner attempted to drag it and then just picked it up in a very sheepish sort of way. There was a good range of dogs, in fact. Yeah, I think interesting. I didn't see any traditional German dogs, so no German shepherds, no Dobermans. So the embrace of the global dog has spread as far as the Nürburgring.
Frank Stintler now behind the wheel of Audi number 5. That's one of the Team Phoenix cars, as he heads up to the top of the hill at... He's at the start of the Nürburgring. Yeah.
So it's going to be range. Down now and
he's coming down. He's just gone past one of the goals.
He's coming to Ad now.
He's coming to Ad now, yeah. So he's coming down through Calenark when we picked him up.
And some of these bits look similar in the day.
There is a train of thought that says that there are fewer distractions in the night as he heads up towards Bergwerk now, through Nicky Lauda's corner, the little left kink into Bergwerk, down through the gearbox, wait, now turn in, don't hit the curb on the right-hand side, and now you're climbing the hill, and it's left-handers a go-go coming up. There are 3 of them, and you don't really need to apex the first 2 at all, but the third one tightens on you just a little bit, and you do not want to go wide there because there's not a car's width between you and the arm core. Coming up towards mid curve, all flat, still climbing. Somebody's been off in front of him, down through the gearbox, through the left-hander, and the curbs here are particularly high on both sides of the road, so you do not want to hit them. Just over the top of the rise, you're braking for the right-hander at the base of the hill before you go up to the Caracciola Carousel. Goes past one of the Supras.
Past Cayman.
Aim at the end of the hoardings and then dropping to the bumpy concrete that is the big carousel. Now this middle part of the track is the bit that you have to learn, because there's a lot of time to be made up or lost here. And another Porsche ahead, another one of the Caymans, dealt with very nicely. So he crests the rise. Just going to come up to one of the several places where you get off the ground. 3rd gear, 4th gear, 5th gear, over the jump, and then through the right-hander. And now it gets really, really quick, and you can use the curves. So you're coming down towards the right-hander before you come to Brunchen. The road drops away. Got to come from the middle of the road here and keep the car tucked to the left-hand side before the double right that is Brunchen. Run out on the block paving on the left-hand side. Set yourself up for the second part of Brunchen, still climbing. And then it's the ice curve coming next, which is the left-hander. He's got traffic ahead of him again. Into the marshal's post over the top of the brow. Another little jump coming up just around the left-hand kink. Brake just before it. Oh, he doesn't. He goes straight into it. Very quick double right-hander. Now coming in to Flansgarden. Use the block paving curbs here as you come up over the top of the rise. And running down the hill, setting yourself up for the right-left over the top of the bridge. The absolute commitment to his inside line, to the right-hander at the end of Flansgarden. The Beloff S's down there. And now to the Kleiner Carousel. Gets on the power nice and early. That car's bouncing around a lot on the concrete though. Heard the rear wheels scrambling for grips. Now into Gallenkopf. Almost a triple pressure corner there. And onto the dot to go. Get out your reading material. Read a couple of chapters. Looking for the Bilstein Bridge in the distance, where you suggest very gently to the car that it might want to go to the left. Just look through it. You're led by your eyes. He's just drifting into the middle of the road now before he heads through the corner and finishes off the rest of the lap.
Really?
He was very, very quick.
Yeah.
Through the middle part there, and very committed through Tiergarten and onto the end of the lap. No improvement showing. We have had an improvement further down the fields. A 9:33.0 for the number 85, the Black Falcon Team Techstar. Now
We've got a ban.
they are they're under
Oh,
investigation.
actually, whilst we watch that on-board lap, there are now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more cars under investigation, John. Yeah, Stippler there, the reason he was slow, well, I don't think he was actually running with the ultimate setup, but also he had so much traffic and was coming up at all the wrong places. So just numbers at 121's under investigation. So we don't know what these investigations are for.
No, it's interesting. We're not being told that.
So 121, which is the Black Falcon Team Identica GT3 Cup 992 of Paul Hockley, Tobias Mara, Noah Nag Elzdik and Carlos Vivas is the first one in the investigation, as is the 331. Have you got that one, John?
Yeah, 331 is the Adrenaline Motorsports Team Alsnet, the BMW 330 G20i. Apologies that the camera mic in the pit lane picked up some rather foul language from the drivers there. Also under investigation.
Team Sorg Rensport.
I cannot keep up with this.
Cesar Mineta, Reinhard Schmiegel, Alberto Carobio and Ugo Vicenzi.
81 also under investigation. That's the Pro Sport Aston Martin. That's 2 for the number 81, I believe.
Well.
Or is that both of the Pro Sport cars?
Yeah, I think so. The 160, the Teichmann Racing KTM Crossbow GTX.
That's the pole sitter in class.
Well, that's an investigation. That's the Paul Greisman, Mike Ronnefeldt, Yves Volt and Felix von der Leyen. The 150 as well, John.
I've got the 150. We are tag teaming these because there's so many of them that dropped in. That's another Aston Martin. That's the Doe Racing car in the GT4 category. So we don't know what these are for, and we don't know where it's going. Next up,
The 135, the Click Vachero team, Porsche 911 GT3 Cup 992. Robin Chinowski, Kirsten Lexnis, Peter Schmark and Max Koch.
and Black Falcons 122, Porsche Carrera Cup 992, Peter Ludwig, Noah Nagelstich, Mark Rosenberg and Hendrik van Danwitz.
And then we've got the 115, which is the MSC Sinzy EV in 8.
Oh my goodness!
VW Golf 7 TCR. We've only got 2 drivers this year. I assume that means even this entry list is not completely up to date. The most recent one available has Artur Gorojan and Fox in their listing.
So the 830 Hyundai, which is the pole sitter in its class, has already had the cancellation of its fastest lap for a pit lane speed limit violation, and now they've been pinged again, so that suggests that that's a programming electronics issue. They've had the cancellation
of all laps.
They've got no laps.
So presumably,
They won't be fastest.
is that in this session or is that for everything?
Well, this session is a continuation of the previous session.
Yeah.
When we started, they didn't remove any of the time. They merely grayed them out to indicate the cars were in the pit.
Yeah.
So that was the only reason for that. They didn't at any point take the time away. So the fastest time is still the Katzenberg time from this afternoon.
Yeah. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. So all of those investigations, we must have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 investigations. It's going to be a late night from the clerks.
Well, I assume what's happened is there has been an area of code 60, which has been, my guess is that because of the time, there's all this.
There's 2 batches, really, isn't there?
Yeah.
About 6 to 8 minutes past, and then just before 12 minutes to about 13, 14 minutes past.
With a clipboard and a radio going, yep, him, yep, them, yep, her, and they've picked up. And I mean, it could just be something simple, but my guess is they've been pretty severe so far. Trying to see whether the previous who are under investigation have picked up penalties. Yeah, the 140 was under investigation, picked up a penalty.
Yeah. What you'll
5 as well. Yeah, they're all.
They will all
code 60.
They will all happen. What will happen, Nick? And this is what happened in the qualifying race. They will be dealt with in the order in which they have been reported as under investigation.
It'll be a very late night for the 115 because they're a long way on that list.
Yes, true that. We have got 9 minutes and 30 seconds left. Let me give you, as it stands at the moment, the rundown of the provisional pole sitters in the classes. One more qualifying session to go for all bar the top classes. But I'll give you everybody in their classes. Starting at the front of the field this time, it's still the Nicky Katzberg time from this afternoon for the BMW M4 Rover Racing number 98 that stands. It is the True Racing KTM Crossbow GT2, the number 116 car that leads SPX in 11th position and barely, in fact, not even a 10th away from a top 10 for that car. That's outstanding. The Cup 2 categories, the 127, that's the Porsche GT3 Cup car from K. Kramer Racing. The Teichmann Racing GmbH is the 160, and that's the Cup X KTM Crossbow. They're leading their class. 80 is still the Dodge Viper, the 13. Number 82 Pro Sport Aston Martin still, at the moment at least, holding pole position, but they are under investigation, aren't they? 82 was one of those numbers that we read out. No, it was 85. No, 85.
Well, the very rare numbers we didn't really read out.
Okay. So, okay, seems reasonable. And behind them is the number 95 Doe Motorsport Aston Martin. I'm having to scan down about 3 screens to see who's under investigation and who isn't. The 263 FK Performance Motorsport team hold the Cup 3 with their Porsche Cayman. They're on provisional pole. The Hyundai Motorsport Elantra 830 still showing as pole position for TCR, but they seem to have lost all of their laps, which is very careless of them.
I know.
Put them down somewhere I can't remember.
They'll find them in one of the tool chest later.
Almost certainly. It'll be the last place to look. The Subaru STI SP3T car is leading its class, and that is the 114 car. Chantal Prince aboard the number 200 Hoffa Racing BMW A46, which leads SP6. Huber Motorsport Porsche is on SP7. Provisional pole at the moment, that's the number 70 car. Into the 80s in terms of the overall Cup 5, which is the M2 BMW Racing Cup. That is still the Adrenaline Motorsport car. Car's been in the pits for a long time. I think they must have cycled through the drivers they wanted to. See above comment for the 718 GTS Porsche number 718, the privately entered car that leads SP4T. VT3 Team Mathol Porsche, that's the number 300. They are still inside the top 100. As are the current pole sitters in V6 for Adrenaline with their 981 Porsche Cayman S, that's a 396 car. BMW 240 leader is the Schnitzelarm Racing BMW, and that's the 245 car. just outside the top 100, the rear drive Adrenaline Motorsport BMW 330 G20. Not that there's a front drive goes, but that is the VT2 class for rear drive cars, the number 330. In 103rd position, Toyota Gazoo Racing, the Altis, number 119. And the Hyundai Driving Experience i30N, not a TCR car. This is a VT2 front-wheel drive car, the 332, in 111th place. And then it's V5 and V4 in that order. Adrenaline 444, the Cayman 981, and the 325 FK Performance GBR, which confusingly is the 324.
Yes.
The 325 car is the number 324. That's how it stands, with just on 5 minutes to go.
Yeah, lots of cleaning in preparation of the pits. A few cars are being stripped down, but getting ready just for cleaning up for the next session. But there's in the Hoover Motorsport, that's the Cayman that's being stripped down to bare skeletal remains. Three of the four corners are off the car now. As I think trying to repair a problem from earlier. Obviously got into towards examining the drive shaft, and the impact on the wheel pushes the entire drivetrain into the gearbox. That will take out the drive shaft, and sometimes we're very unlucky to take the gearbox as well.
It can certainly do the gearbox casing, and you're in trouble at that point. To be honest, if you've had a big thump on the gearbox where the drive shaft goes in, you'll probably change that as a precaution. Christian Cronjes broke the lap records for qualifying, the qualifying lap record in the first top 40 top car shootout of the qualifying weekend with an 8:08.5.66. He was then usurped by another BMW driver, but this time for Rover Racing, with an 8:08.421, and that was Augusto Farfus. So there we are. I've got to the bottom of it finally with a little help from the collective. Thank you to Christian Cronjes. I hadn't thought to do what the very clever Wicker Bill has done, which is to go back in to the timing and run to the end of the sessions. Frank Stippler is weaving around.
Very slow. Wonder whether he's running out of fuel. He's very, very slowly down Docking Hill, and he has been overtaken by everything else. As you can hear in the background, it is a lot of gearbox noise, but not much velocity. A bit of
I think he might have a puncture.
Yeah,
I think he's got a right-hand side puncture.
I'm just hoping he's not hit something. And he's gone off, hit something, bit of a puncture, and now he's able to walk it back. We won't get a side-on view for the car until he gets towards Tiergarten.
They're sitting in 25th position, 22nd in class at the moment, which is a little further down, I'm sure, than they would like. Just on 3 minutes to go. They'll not get that car, unless it is just a puncture, they'll not get that car back out again.
The problem is, of course, officially he has to do the entire Grand Prix lap as well, isn't he?
Yes.
He can't dive in at the Nord pit entrance will be available once the race starts. There's three GT3s zip past him as he goes into Tiergarten, the left and the right-hand turn, and they'll come the final left, which then takes you onto the crossover back onto the Grand Prix straight and gives them a chance to head down straight to the first hairpin.
The Falcon Horse number 100 in the pit at the moment. They look like they're done for the night.
Yeah, interesting. They didn't give us a shot of Stippler up from the side, so we can't see exactly what the reason was he was moving so slowly. But I'm sure they'll get the RF camera to the pit garage, which he absolutely certainly will pull the thing in as soon as possible. It's quite a limiting factor, actually, when you do hit a problem out on the main Nordschleife. You can't then bring the thing into the pit. You have to do an extra 2.5 miles.
In this configuration,
yes.
When we get to the race, of course, he'll be able to come in straight off the Dottinger Hall. Okay, let's see if we can work out what happened to Stippy. He's coming down to Brunchen. No, he's not. He's coming down the hill to the bridge at Adenauer.
Problem. Engine gearbox.
Engine or driveline, as he was coming down the hill to the halfway entry point that used to be used for tourist laps. So he's basically had to do half a lap.
Well, yeah, and then you'll have to got some Chris, but it'll done by the time he gets back, it'll done 8 or 9 miles on a damaged car.
More cancellation of fastest lap, and this time for the team Get Speed number 4. This is the Fabi Schiller, Maxi Goetz, Adam Christodoulou car, and that's again speeding in the pit lane.
Which there is no excuse for. There is no excuse for it. That's the one thing you should never do. There's no reason for speeding in the pit lane. Every driver's done it, and we all make mistakes. But there is the thing where you can't say, "Oh, I didn't do this, didn't do that." I mean, I suppose initially, on the outside chance that someone in the garage has set the speed limit wrong, which is probably very, very unlikely. Otherwise, you've either tried to gain the entry and pinged it, or you've just forgotten to apply it or take it off too early, and that's caused a problem on the way out.
Stippler has made it back to the pit lane.
I wonder whether he's been in the same gear the entirety of that time.
Possibly.
Because it did sound very kind of hydraulically diffy. That's it, I've had enough now. I'm not changing any more gears for you. Comes in.
This is the number 16 car we are talking about. This is the green, white and red Phoenix racing car.
All the cars.
Sorry, the 5 car was the car we're talking about. The 16 was already there, and that was the Michele Beretta Scherer Sport Team Phoenix car.
This is the blue and white one.
Right, I can
gearbox noises.
I can hear the gearbox
actuator.
Yeah, that is the air pump, isn't it? The compressor.
I've seen those go before in R8.
Yes.
They hang right out the back, and they're really easy to change, but still take a while.
Yeah.
So they're at the back, and what we think about is the longitudinal gearbox stuck on the back of the engine. So actually, the last thing of an R8 is the gearbox, and actually the tail end of the box actually protrudes past the rear axle line.
They're taking a while before they pull that back into the pit lane, into the pit garage, should I say. They are down in the far end of the pit lane, well, about halfway down actually. Garage number 22. As many as 6 cars sharing these garages, as few as 4. As many as we have seen up to 7 and 8 down through the years when we've had the 170 cars. 220 the first year that I came here in 2007.
I mean, the issue really is it's really very hard to work on the cars. We were wandering down there yesterday, checking some of the engineers and the mechanics, and it's a nightmare just trying to get the space to work around a car. You know, a lot of the garages kind of cooperate to have a stringing section, for a better term, with the laser alignment. So they kind of clear an area where the cars kind of rolled in for alignment. But if you have a problem, as now, so there's a problem that needs to be fixed on the Stippler car, the 5. They will have to find some space in a garage that already has 4 other cars possibly worked on, cleaned up, to actually get large chunks of that car into pieces. And that just adds time and awkwardness and tiredness to the whole process. Because obviously the easier it is to work on the car, the less tired you've ever done it.
And checkered flag is in hand and is waving opposite us.
Yeah, I think you wait about a minute, I think.
Yeah. Of course, you can finish the lap you're on. Anybody on a quick one, Nick, that you can see out there?
Nothing green. There's one sort of, I think Mathieu Jaminet's put it as slight, but there's nothing really going on now, speed-wise.
Chris Humphreys is one of the Orange Army. He says, at what point do we just start calling out the cars who've not yet to go to race control? It's not a bad idea, Chris, to be honest. This list is not getting any shorter, let me tell you that. So where was that number 4? Or is that just that's just an easy one, isn't it? They've just basically lost patience now. I still think we've got about 10 or a dozen cars that have yet to be sorted out. Let me run down the times for you at the end of qualifying 2. One more qualifying to come to sort out all the classes other than the top 3, but it is BMW and Rover Racing from Falcon Horse BMW, from Mercedes Team Bilstein, from Audi Sport Team Car Collection, from Schubert BMW, from Dynamic Porsche, from TF Aston Martin in 7th, Rover Racing in 8th, Tok Sport Porsche in 9th, and the top 10 made up by Mercedes AMG Team Get Speed. In the classes, SPX is led by the KTM Crossbow of True Racing number 116. Their GTX car from Teichmann Racing, and the 160 is in 33rd position and leads Cup X. 34th position is K Kramer Racing's Porsche 992, leading Cup 2. It's the 127 car. Into the 40s, and we have the AT, the Alternative Fuels provisional pole sitter, the Dodge Viper number 13. Pro Sport are leading with their Aston Martin in SP10, the number 82, in 49th position. In 51st, Doe Motorsport with another Aston Martin, the 95, is at the moment in pole position for their SP8T class. In 56th position, FK Motorsport, FK Performance with their Cayman number 263. 57, TCR, still Hyundai Motorsport. 59th, Subaru Technica, and SP3T with the 114. Next pole position is 72nd, Hoffa Racing in the 200 car in SP6. 73rd is Huber Motorsport in SP7. 84th is the 871 Cup 5 class leader, the BMW Racing Cup of Adrenaline Motorsport. The privately entered Porsche 718, number 718, leads SP4T. In 96th position, VT3 is Team Mathold's Cayman 718. The 396 in 97th leads V6 for Adrenaline Motorsport. 240i class is the 245 Schnitzelarm Racing BMW. 102nd position, the 330 VT2 rear drive is Adrenaline Motorsport's BMW 330. SP3 Toyota Gazoo Racing's Altis number 119 leads that class. The front wheel drive 332 class leader, the VT2 is the 332 Hyundai of Hyundai driving experience. 444 leads in the Porsche Cayman 981 in V5, and V4 in 121st position leads for FK Performance in their 325i BMW in V4. The Dacia Logan is 135th and did get some laps in tonight. So pretty much everybody did go out this evening, and they had to get their night laps and to get all their drivers qualified. Every driver, to be able to be in the race, has to have 2 qualifying laps. 135 cars went out earlier today, and right at the end there we did get an improvement actually by the Golf 316 valve, the Golf Mark 3 of MXC Zinzig EVM ADAC, the 143 car in 134th position. The weather has played ball. It's been warm in the sun, chilly out of it with the north wind blowing down. Early issues for Porsche on Porsche action, with the KCMG car getting hit pretty hard by the Falcon Porsche. Patrick Pilet into the back of Nick Tandy, and the 44 car losing part of its right front bodywork. Pilet then jumped into the 33 and put that car's fastest lap in. Vincent Kolb went for a wild ride after hitting the side of the 43, the 263, excuse me, in the Audi. It was quite a while before we saw all the cars come out, because the top 15, of course, had already qualified, so missed the first 20 minutes. And as the sun went down, we had a slew of faster laps coming in. The golden hour was golden in light and golden in the opportunity to improve the times from this afternoon. As the evening wore on, the teams were cycling through their drivers, making sure everybody got their mandatory 2 laps. The Glickenhaus, after a troubling day yesterday and for the first part of qualifying this afternoon, got some meaningful laps in, with their drivers going through the qualifying process, and they moved up to second in class, just outside the top 20. Couple of long chord 60s did slow things down in the middle of that session, and there was a particularly long one on the Grand Prix circuit, which meant that quite a few teams just decided to bail back in to the pit lane. But a huge amount of investigative work being undertaken by the stewards, with pit lane speeding, not respecting the purple flags for code 60, which has seen somewhere in the late teens or possibly more cars being reported to the stewards. Contact as well from Valkenhorst has seen a couple of their cars, the 100 and the 102, being penalised, and the 102 for non-respect of the purple flags have been relegated to the back of their starting grid. And whatever happens from now on, that will not be rescinded for Jörg Müller, Mario van Polen, Ben Tuck and Jan Schmidt-Stad. So the stewards and the clerk of the course making sure that everybody knows on which side of the line they can operate. And at the end of the evening, it's BMW's first and second from Mercedes, Audi, third BMW in fifth position, the first of the Porsches in sixth. There's an Aston Martin in the top 10 for the Singleton Vantage GT3 from TF Sport. But as Tom Ferrier said earlier on in the week, it only takes one to get pole, and it only takes one to win the race. The top 10 made up by Rover Racing's BMW, the Porsche of Talksport, who've moved to Porsche from AMG, and Team Get Speed with their new colour scheme round out the top 10. In the night time, it was all about who was brave and who could work out what the other drivers were doing. Kelvin von der Linde for Scherer Sport, Audi Team Phoenix, picking his way through traffic. But it wasn't all wine and roses out there, with a number of cars coming back on the flatbed. That'll be long evenings for their mechanics. But all in all, Nick, a pretty decent day with meaningful laps put in by all of the 135 cars that we've seen today out of the 138 that were on the original entry.
Yeah, I think it's been a very good day for laps-wise. We haven't had too many cars come back in many pieces, so I think very few cars are worried about starting the race, which you can often get early on. But yeah, great performances all round, and some very good clean racing, and some nice amusing incidents too.
What do you call an amusing incident then?
Well, when someone does something a bit silly and then doesn't get hurt.
Right, okay. That does seem reasonable. So that rounds off our coverage from the 50th anniversary Total Energy ADAC 24 hours of the Nürburgring for Thursday. Fast Friday comes up with a final qualifying session for everybody. That will set the positions for all bar the top categories. They'll then get reset, go into single car qualifying, and we'll whittle them down to the top 19. That happens tomorrow. We have it for you live.